Good morning, everyone. My name is Jason Barbanel. I am the Channel Partnership Manager with NetElixir, and it is my pleasure to extend a hearty welcome to everyone in attendance today. It has been a long 2 years since many of us have been in attendance at an in-person event, so it is very refreshing to see that all of you have taken the time out of your busy schedules to join us for this workshop, The Future of Digital Marketing. I would like to take some time to thank everybody at Google, UPS, and NetElixir for all of their hard work in making today possible. Without them, we wouldn't be here, so let's give them a round of applause. This is a lot of hard work coming into today. Before we begin, I'd like to point out the bathrooms are right outside to the left, and if anyone gets hungry or thirsty, we have some food and refreshments right outside there as well. For our workshop, we're going to discuss all the changes that are happening within the digital marketing space. We will address the disruptions that we have experienced with e-commerce, and hear some recommendations from Google and NetElixir on how to navigate the challenging digital marketing landscape. Does everyone have a bag? If anyone doesn't have a bag, raise your hand, we'll get one. Inside, you're going to find, oh, you don't have one. Right over here, we need a bag. You need a bag. You need a bag. You need a bag. Don't be scared. Get that hand up. We'll get you a bag. We got one over here. You got a bag? You need a bag? Keep that hand up. We're not going to know. He puts his hand down. We're not going to know he needs a bag. One more up in front. You got this, Justin. So we will get you your bag, I promise. You can catch up. Inside, we have a few goodies for you guys, along with our interactive workbook that'll walk you through today's events. In that notebook as well, there are some blank pages where you can take some notes, jot down any questions you may have. You can even connect with all of our presenters on LinkedIn by scanning the QR code underneath each picture. We also have a little homework for you guys. There is a survey card in the bag as well. We will collect them at the end of the workshop, but if you guys can give us your feedback on today's event, it will really help us make our events even better in the future for everyone involved. So over the next few hours, we're going to cover many topics, but don't worry, we're going to have all the information and everything we talked about available for you guys after the event, should you happen to miss something. But if you guys can turn to the first page of the book, or you can check out the screens, you'll find the agenda for today. NetElixir will speak on the deprecation of third-party cookies and how it impacts digital marketers. Next, Google will address driving business results through a One Google approach. After these amazing insights, we'll have a short break where we can have some coffee and stretch our legs for a bit. When we return, we'll have a panel discussion on the future of digital, touching on the very important question, how do you envision your digital business in the year 2025? Following that, UPS will present on the future of logistics. Then we'll have our closing remarks and a networking lunch. We have an amazing, insightful, and impactful day in store for everybody. I hope you guys are excited. But without further ado, let's get things started. I would like to introduce NetElixir's Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships, Kenneth Mayer.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Nice to be with you this morning. Grateful you could be here. This is my first time in New York City. I'm from St. Louis, but originally I was from Texas, and interestingly enough, I visited businesses in the Dallas area for years, and when I would introduce myself to people I had never met before, they would frequently say, as I would say, you know, my name's Kenny, I'm from UPS. I was with UPS at the time. They would say, are you from New York City? And I had no idea. This happened again and again and again. And I don't know why. I said, actually, I'm from about half an hour away from here. But they all thought that I was from New York City upon looking at me. So I'm glad to be here with my people. Thank you all for welcoming me home. But no, it's great to be with you. We have some very exciting things to discuss today. And where I'd like to introduce our CEO of NetElixir, but before I do that, I want to tell a little story. In February of this year, he and I were at a e-commerce show in California, and he was a panelist on the topic of this third-party cookie discussion. And one of the things that was very clear to us in this discussion was the questions that were coming from the audience and the other people who were on the panel. The whole conversation made it very clear that nobody had any idea what was going on and how they were going to move forward in this. After that, it was when we decided, let's get with Google, let's figure some things out, and let's put something together. And then you may ask, what is the relationship between Google and UPS, and how did this whole thing come to be? UPS and Google need no introduction. They are like the foundation stones in e-commerce, if you will. NetElixir is like the mortar between those two stones. So as a premier Google partner and as a member of Google's leadership circle, NetElixir is in the top 3% of agencies and is one of 12 out of 6,139 agencies that produce at the level that it produces for its customers. So on the Google side, we've got a great relationship. On the UPS side, NetElixir is UPS's e-commerce growth partner. And what that means is NetElixir helps grow UPS companies' package count. So the relationship works out great. So there became an opportunity for NetElixir to be a bridge between UPS customers and Google. So we're here today to talk a little bit about that and to really share some knowledge. It was Albert Einstein that said the only source of knowledge is experience. And it reminded me of a story that Boyd K. Packer shared about two crows. And he said, once there were two crows sitting on a tree branch, and one was a younger crow and one was an older crow. And the younger crow said to the older crow, I can fly circles around you, don't you? And the older crow said, yes, that may be true. But the difference is, I know where to fly. So as true as experience is, one of the things that we're here today we're in an environment that there's a quote from the Wall Street Journal that I wrote down just last week. It said, inflation, supply chain challenges, soaring gas prices, and customers walking back into actual stores following 2 years of pandemic have all combined to make things tough for online sellers. Those are just some of the pressures that are on online retailers. And the fact is, nobody has ever been here before in this kind of environment with these kinds of pressures. There are no old crows. So our goal today is to have you leave with at least knowing what direction to fly in. So our objective is to address things that are on your mind and to make sure that we get those things to you so you feel equipped and the most educated as possible in addressing some of these things that are before us all. So, what questions are you hoping to have answered today? Anybody care to throw one out? Anybody come hoping to hear anything?
What do we do after third-party cookies complete?
Okay, what do we do when third-party cookies are gone? All right, we will talk about that. Anything else? That's on the agenda. That's not all. Anybody want to drill down a little bit deeper? And the data, excellent question. So there's what do we do with the data that we're collecting? We'll talk about Google Analytics 3 and 4 and what it all means. Excellent. Anybody else? Okay, preparing for it, right? Ramping up to this kind of change, and how fast does that ramp need to happen, and what needs to be done along the way? Excellent question. Yes, thank you. These are the kinds of things we're here to discuss and more. I trust that you will leave today with some insights that will help you not only answer these questions, but more. Throughout the day, if you have questions, we encourage you to answer them or to ask them. We will have our speakers that will answer, and there'll be part of today's meeting, as Jason mentioned, will be a panel discussion where you'll get a chance to hear from some experts in this field. So I mentioned that NetElixir is this bridge or this mortar in the foundations of e-commerce, if you will. NetElixir does two things, essentially, for businesses. They help to find and engage high-value customers and acquire game-changing insights. Those are the two outcomes that NetElixir drives. And the way that that's done is through these 5 things. Digital marketing is a field that requires experience. It requires expertise. NetElixir brings 18 years of expertise to the market with over 600 different successes and various product categories and industry verticals. There's also a proprietary artificial intelligence platform that NetElixir leverages to help make this machine learning effective for the use of its clients. An international search marketing component is also a strength that NetElixir brings to the table. And as I mentioned, NetElixir is a proud member of Google's Leadership Circle, one of 12 out of 6,139 agencies in the United States. So with that, I'd like to introduce you to NetElixir's CEO and founder, Udan Bose. He's an innovation fellow at the Lang Center of Entrepreneurship in Columbia Business School and a guest lecturer at Johnson School of Management at Cornell and City University of New York and the Indian School of Business. So without any further delay, Udan Bose.
Thank you very much, Kenny. Whenever someone introduces me as a CEO, one of the things, just to start off right off the bat, right? Except for the executive, I am anything. Sometimes I become a chief entertainment officer, so E stands for entertainment. Sometimes E stands for experience, because I'm getting old, so understandably experience officer. But today, I think the hat of CEO that I really want to wear is that of an endlessly curious officer. So E stands for endlessly curious and utterly confused. So I don't think anyone has a sort of answer to essentially what the cookieless world and all that is sort of going to happen. So I wanted to start with a bit of a personal story. And essentially my story, which is the theme, and as I was sort of coming in, taking that dear old New Jersey transit and sort of making it to the New York City, I couldn't help but think of 20 years back. So my journey in the digital world started about 20 years back, when a couple of my engineering schoolmates invited me to join them as a co-founder in a company called Party Gaming. And it was, of all things, online casino, right? So online casino sounded fun. I said that, yeah, before that I was selling soaps for P&G. So from soaps to online gaming seemed to be a shift. I said, heck yeah, I'll just take the chance. So I still remember this one conversation which I had with both of my friends, co-founders, and so on, where I said, what is so fascinating about, what is that one thing about digital marketing that excites you the most? And their response I'll never forget. They said that among other things, digital marketing is something which is entirely measurable, entirely controllable, and that is what really makes it exciting, because we are all engineers, right? So engineers, mathematics is something that we love. And coming from there, it's sort of the control and measure seem to be extremely exciting. Over the last 20 years, as we sort of really built the company, we started it in 2004 and ran the company, I think there has been one more humble acknowledgement, which really sort of puts me in two minds. I am probably more excited with the cookie deprecation than most people are. And I'll tell you the reason why, because I think moving to a first party makes it a lot more, or there is a likelihood of making it a lot more responsible digital marketing as well. In between, in the last 20 years, what had happened is third-party cookies, for example, let us say Chaz is my good friend. He's giving me something, but I can give it to a third party who doesn't know Chaz, who can give it to someone else as well. So it really had become my information is everyone's information, which, I mean, I know in the fanatically analytical number crunching world is exciting. But if you really look at it where it was 20 years back, where it is now, is it truly exciting as to where the world is headed to? So I would rather have a balance, and I would really, really sort of use this opportunity to call upon what I think is the next era of digital marketing, which is a lot more responsible digital marketing as such. Really quick, in terms of the agenda, what are cookies? I think all of you in this audience know as to what are cookies. I'll not spend too much time. The first party and third party data. I'll try to spend a little bit in terms of what is changing and the emergence of new digital marketing. Now, that is where I really have a caveat, right? I don't know. I'm just starting with a candid admission, I don't know. These are at best a point of view that we collectively share between us, our friends at Google, and our friends at UPS. So this is what we discuss constantly, because everyone is trying to project as to what would the world tomorrow really look like. And I'll try to make a case for what I think is only one of those options that I have really been able to, I can say with a fair amount of certainty that I believe this is the way I can see the world is going to move to, which is full funnel marketing. So I'll sort of make a case for full funnel marketing. And lastly, I'll try to redefine our role. I think it's extremely important so we have been running this company for about 18 years now. And after 18 years, I think this is the moment when, if we try to do things as we have done for 18 years, that's one of the words which I would use is guaranteed to fail, right? But we really have to look into the future from a completely different perspective, a fresh perspective altogether, and really challenge the norms. And that's what the hope or aspiration of this particular workshop is. I asked a couple of gentlemen there as to what exactly were you hoping to get out? Why are you even attending this event? And we will try to answer those questions and more. I have just one request before I launch in to the presentation. Think of this as more of a conversation starter or a thought starter. If you have any questions, any thoughts, anything to add to that, the Google team, we have 5 members from the Google team out here. We have our team, we have anyone. Let us start those conversations. So what I hope to do, or what we hope to do in today's session is, we really hope to start those conversations, which are extremely important, because now, again, sort of getting a little technical here, we know July 1st, 2023, the cookie tentatively would deprecate. That's what it is. So we literally, the countdown has started, and let the conversation start as well. So with that, let me talk a little bit about cookies. So cookie, again, just very quickly, this is a classic case of going to Google and picking up as to what is a cookie, right? It's a small piece of data stored on the user's computer. But the next slide is the one which was very interesting. So this is the first party where you are visiting a website. You are deciding whether you consent the website to collect the data about me or not. Simple, right? And at this point in time, apparently about 74% of the people decide not to allow the website track the data. 74%, again, the numbers is all up there, 64%, 78%. But 74% seems to be the average in the US. They do not provide consent for you to track the data, right? So that means 26% do. The second part, I think, is interesting. So this is what we have been used to, right? Visit another site, then the content is provided to a website. So this is where I was talking about. Your data is getting shared around within a particular ecosystem. Now, have they taken permission from you? Heck no, absolutely no. But then how are you sharing the data? So we have really lived with it, and mathematical nerds like me have had a fantastic time really living with it. But at this point in time, we really have to be more focused on that word that I talked about, which is the word called responsibility. So that's where I think I'm actually happy, not mathematically, but happy as just a human being that we are moving to a first-party data situation. So this is, as I mentioned, I mean, that has been pretty much the overall infrastructure on which the entire digital marketing has been based, which was quite fascinating, coming from selling soaps to the digital world. When my 2 co-founders mentioned that everything can be measured and everything can be tracked, I found it to be quite fascinating, because it's a bit of a departure as to how you think. So what is changing? This is, again, a quick timeline. The users have been raising their privacy expectations, rightfully so. And we have seen, I think many of you have really faced the impact of iOS's, the IDFA, et cetera, which happened almost exactly a year back, 26th of April last year. And the impact some of the channels really experienced, specifically, I would want to call out Meta or Facebook, which we saw suddenly the numbers couldn't be tracked as accurately as it was earlier. And we are looking at Chrome phasing out the third-party cookies in 2023, sometimes mid of the year, maybe around July 1. So that's the quick timeline. Now, why does it really matter so much? Primarily because, as you can see, globally about 63%, and in the US about 50% of all the browsers are Chrome. And Chrome plus Safari is a big, big chunk of all the browsers there. So the impact will be big. Impact is definitely going to be big. There are 3 reasons, and I will sort of speak to each one of them. Would love to, again, have any thoughts, questions, anything at all. There are 3 areas I really wanted to highlight on this one, right? And out of the many areas, these 3 we called out because we could immediately sort of see an impact there. The first part is the addressability part, the targeting precision. We had gotten down to that level. We were literally tracking, theoretically, our customers almost like a day-to-day, minute-to-minute, almost like a tracking. But at this point in time, I think it's important for us to respect what is called the PII, let us say the personally identifiable information as well. So that's where it's definitely going to be impacted. How exactly can brands work with that being the reality is going to be a question. The second part is the measurement, the accurate reporting and campaign optimization. We have already seen with, I think, again, giving the example of Facebook, how the overall reporting and the numbers have been a little off. And the third part is the attribution, right? The path between the ad interactions. For example, we ourselves, to an extent, are mathematical culprits because we had built a technology which has the capability of tracking those individual customer journeys, and we were using some phenomenal machine learning models to really build out customer persona. It was almost like magic. It was almost like as we were going through the TSA, and you were putting your fingerprint, and it can get your entire image. So we have built that technology. We built it in 2014. The question is, how does it evolve in this new world, right? So the attribution part, the part between the ad interaction and the conversion actually happening also will get impacted quite substantially. Let me pause here. Any questions, any thoughts? Again, my request would be, let us use this as more of a forum of conversation rather than me presenting. Yes, please.
If you do server-to-server data transfer,
Mm-hmm.
the solution for cookieless is reporting directly from your server to whatever advertiser you want to feed?
Yeah, I think there are 2 things. One is, let us talk about the end consumer, and let us talk about, so the consumer can decide to give you consent or not decide to give you consent. Apparently, about 26% give you consent, and 24% give you consent, 76% do not give you consent, right? So that's, I think, what we have. The click, accept all cookies, right? But then they are not giving you consent to really go ahead and share that with anyone on the advertising side, right? So far, it was just taken, right? It was basically, yeah, taken for granted that I can share it because the third-party cookie system that we sort of tracked was there. So it's almost like saying that, let us say, you are giving me a gift, right? And you are giving the gift because you know me, you are a friend, but you are not consenting me to hand over the gift to someone else that you don't know. So that's essentially, I think, what the impact part is. Now, effectively, I think there are ways, and we'll sort of get into a little more detail as well, but hopefully that addresses the question, yeah. Any other questions at all? Anything at all? So I'll keep going, but again, just there is a lot going on, and as I mentioned, I think the idea here is to trigger a conversation. So any questions, please feel free to stop me anytime. So as the cookie crumbles, and that's the part I really wanted to emphasize, reimagine the future, right? So the digital marketing world, again, I'm sort of getting a little philosophical probably at this point in time. Digital marketing is based on a certain concept, which is the third-party cookie, is the fundamental, that is the infrastructure based on which is sort of based in trade. Suppose that concept is now going off. We know that it's going off. So what would you do? Would you try to, there are 2 things that you can do. You can either sort of take a step back and look into that completely differently. So you're almost like saying that if I'm seeing you from here, you look different, compared to if I'm seeing you from here, you look different, right? So that's one approach. The second approach is, I'm looking at you from here, I'll sort of move a little bit, I'm looking at it from here as well. So unfortunately, and I just give you my personal opinion, I think a lot of companies are trying to do this. They are trying to find out workarounds, which essentially goes as third party, first party. This is how we have been doing it in third party, let us do it in first party. But why can't we really take a step back, maybe look at from a different perspective, and then think if there is a possibility of reimagining things and how advertising works, right? Let me give you some, again, purely personal sort of a point of view and so on. And I'm pretty sure Billy and Drew would talk a lot about it later as well. So what if I mention a line that, let us say, digital marketing, when I say responsible, I'm talking about the quality of creatives actually would be a lot superior. Primarily because now you would be forced to think that what you are essentially presenting to your customers to engage them, you really sort of want to put a lot more effort and thought in terms of building that, right? So I think it's phenomenal for creative excellence. Overall, the amount you can expect will definitely go up. The second thing, if I think of it, you probably will be able to find out ways to craft a very specific, personalized first-party data strategy, and hopefully, you'll be able to utilize this in a way which you have never been able to do so far, right? So it almost like forces you to be, one, more creative, second, more innovative as well. The only thing that I'm sort of requesting, please don't look at it from, this is the shift from third party to first party. Please look at it from a different angle altogether. And that would be my request, I think, to all of you. We're just sort of getting in. So it's the time to reimagine the future rather than just trying to make those small sort of changes. So obviously, this really has to evolve. I don't really get into too detail. There is a lot out here on this slide. Things like audience targeting, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure there are ways to do that. Like, for example, something like customer match, lookalike audiences, etc. All of these have to evolve also. Conversion measurement. So when suddenly, let us say, you're working very closely with Google, and Google, essentially, there is a certain reporting system, right? Now, they recently introduced GA4, Google Analytics 4, which has the capability of cross-browser, cross-device, cross-session sort of a tracking. Now, effectively, what Google is trying to do, or I think what most of the evolved channels are trying to do, they are trying to use machine learning, which is, I think, one huge development which has really happened in the last about 5 or 6 years, where AI now actually is getting utilized in marketing to bridge this gap. So that means that even if I am not really getting the data flow, because Google is not going to get the direct data flow because it's your data, they can use the machine learning models to go ahead and come up with some prediction cases. And that is exciting, because that means that finally we are thinking from a different perspective, right? Some of you, I'm pretty sure, are running Google ad campaign. Probably most of you are running Google ad campaigns. And you would have, in certain cases, struggled with all these new, what we call the modern search modules, right? Things like enhanced conversions, right? Things like RSA, things like DSA, and so on and so forth. So this is a great opportunity to really take that entire way which Google advertising can be done in a different way. And let me explain as to what I mean. So we have been so habituated. When we started the company in 2004, it was Overture, Yahoo sort of acquired Overture and so on. So everything was down to the keywords. We could see the bids of competitors as well, believe it or not, till 2005. Right? And we were able to just doing this thing. But is that the most creative use of your talent? I would argue no. Right? What if we think of utilizing AI to help you be more creative? Let me explain that as well. I would probably allude and give reference to a lot of books I would love for you. Again, I can't help being a professor, so I will give you a lot of books. If you have any interest, please do check them out. One of the books I would definitely refer is a book called Prediction Machines. It is run by 3 professors in University of Toronto, came out about 5 years back. Prediction Machines, right? So what, and Professor Anil Agarwal, so he has really broken it down into a very simplistic sense. He has said that all the machine learning modules now, there is an input, right? So you do any task or take any action, there is an input which is coming in. Then based on the input, you make a decision, right? What path will you choose? And then there are certain predictive capabilities. I'll sort of do this, which is called the task, right? So if you really break down everything that you do into 3 specific components. First is judgment, the decision, which path will I take? The second one is a repetitive task, what will I do? And the third is what exactly am I learning? That's what comprises each task that you do, or any human being does. Now in this, machine learning is far more equipped to take care of the task part and the learning part, because there is a recursive model. There is almost like an ongoing sort of going in. What it will force, if machine is taking care of that, isn't your talent much better utilized by focusing on the judgment piece? So it is my firm belief if you let Google's modern search algorithms do their thing, right? Once you have to train the model, et cetera, right? You would come out with options a lot more creative than you have been when you sort of were managing those keyword bids individually to find out different paths of gaining market share. Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of using AI and predictive analytics to serve ads
Mhm.
and build personas. But you mentioned on a previous slide that the loss of attribution is going to affect how marketers
Right.
can build personas. So how is the loss of data going to allow for machine learning and predictive analytics?
Beautiful point. So what is happening now? So this is, I think, what we call the transition phase, right? So we know that third-party cookies are deprecating. Let us just put a date, July 1st, right? So we know this is the time, this is probably the best time for you to collect data. You are getting all the first-party data, so you need to have your first-party data strategy to really collect and aggregate the data. At the same time, you have access to third-party data as well. Right? Similarly, if you implement something like GA4, GA4 is getting all this data as well, which will really help you build those machine learning models. Or GA4 can apply its machine learning to bridge the gap. So this is the time I would request all of you to utilize. Just think of as what I mentioned, right? So this is a time which, I mean, if once the third-party cookie deprecates, will never come back again. Because people are focusing a lot more in terms of more responsible first-party data strategies and more creative strategies. At the same time, they also have access to the third-party data as well. Right? So this is the time, do not waste it. Let me just be very direct on this one. So once you really build this, what you have done is two things. One, you have really trained your GA4 and given them enough data so that they can use the machine. Because Google will not have access to the first-party data. They're not allowed to, right? But 1 year or 15 months, whatever is left, it will allow the machine learning to really get some sort of a material which can really help them become smarter. So the gap in performance will not be as much. Still, you can maintain GA3 with the universal analytics and the GA4. And universal analytics will sort of go off probably in about 3 to 5 months. So utilize all of this time, and then at the same time, build your first-party data infrastructure. What are the things that you are collecting? What is the responsible? And then I would actually even sort of go ahead and advise or recommend, can you really do those in-house sessions, even once in a month if you are meeting, where people just come up with questions, how exactly will you use this first-party data for marketing? I'm telling you, you'll sort of get a lot of very creative ideas, right? And this has to come from your internal team. Externally, I mean, an agency like us can help. We can really help you have a structure as to what other people are doing, but we'll not be able to tell you exactly this is what you need to do, because that has to come from your. So please focus on questions. Please focus on utilizing this team. Have GA4 implemented today, if not yesterday, and then utilize this combined data to come up with building those models. Once you have built this, let us say we look into the future, maybe about August 2023. At that point in time, you have enough first-party data. So all that you need to do is use a machine learning algorithm or any customer data platform which has marketing capabilities put on top of that. So it can utilize that information. At the same time, you have GA4 as well. So what you can do is you can, at that point in time, compare as well as amplify the impact by combining both of these together. Sorry for a very long answer. hopefully sort of that. Yes, please.
So what if we are we not able to switch from GA360 to GA4 by next July? Is there any machine learning on?
GA3 to GA4. GA360 is different. So yeah. That's a good point. I would probably let Billy answer that question. Billy, I think this is more.
The questions I was getting this actually.
Okay, sorry.
If anyone has questions, these are actually microphones, and you could toss them around just so everyone else can hear.
So Billy, I think you are probably more. Billy and Drew are there from
I got
Google.
you. Okay, awesome.
I'll let you. Yes.
Yeah, I'll tell. Two is better than one.
So Billy, the
Okay.
question was on
Take it back.
GA360.
I'm going to chuck it at you guys. It's cool.
Yeah, would you mind repeating that GA360 question?
Yes. So I was asking. So right now we're currently using GA360. If we don't have time by next July to switch to GA4, is there any way for you guys to like implement machine learning on GA360, or what do we do if we cannot switch it? Like what happened to us?
For sure. So I think it's clear that. I think it's clear that the industry is going towards 4, obviously, and at some point that's going to be the standard, and 3 will be deprecated. I would say right now, just because you said you're working in 360 specifically, right? Let us take that as a follow-up, because actually we have specialized teams dedicated to the 360 suite who can actually speak to that individually. So while our team typically will function in the world of standard Google Ads, the 360 suite is actually handled by a totally different team because it's a separate product, but we'll get you that answer.
Yes, please, absolutely.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah.
No, because I'm thinking like, say, past the third-party deprecation, now you're talking like, late 2023, and, the data starts shriveling up a little bit that we could use for persona building or predictive analytics, because consumerism changes and behavior changes over time. So that data we do collect between now and then might become unreliable. So using first-party data, maybe the Google guys can answer this. Does Google Ads connect with something like Klaviyo that can effectively use first data collection of customer behavior on your website, that we could use that to build and use that for machine learning and to target ads and build personas?
Absolutely. I think I will show you a solution after this.
Okay.
So we'll sort of answer that question. So we'll come back to you. I'll show you as to how exactly it can be done. And I can show you a solution as well, very similar to Klaviyo, but probably the next level.
All right, cool.
Yeah. Any other questions? I'll not really go into each one of them because I'm already, I think, before sort of Billy and Drew drive me out of my podium, I can keep on going on this topic. But anything else? So these are some of the pieces which are there. So if there was a takeaway from this particular slide, the first part is just the concept which I mentioned. Utilize your first party and third party very well. This is the time, right? The second part, I think, is important, that take a step back and look into the marketing stack that you have, or that tech stack that you have, and really look at it as to how prepared is it for tomorrow's world. The third component, which I would sort of emphasize in this one, if you do not have GA4 implemented, implement it now. So these are, I think, the very 3 simple key takeaways. I want to keep going, and I probably will warn Billy and Drew that I'm running a little late because I wanted to focus on the concept. So some of the likely trends, right? I mean, there are a lot of trends. So strong relationship between brands. I think the brands have definitely a very powerful chance. So what has happened is, again, there are a lot of retailers in this room, there are a lot of brands in this room as well. But I think this is an opportunity for brands to really build memorable experiences, to take the entire baton of responsibility and take it to the different level altogether. And that's primarily because utilizing the first-party data, and if they really know a way to really answer the right questions, you can elevate the entire customer engagement to a completely different plane. So I really would mention that. The second one is the performance marketing into full funnel marketing. I've talked a couple of times now. I'll explain this as well. The next part I've already talked about, that conversion modeling. We sort of bridge the gap between where the data flow stops and where you really use those algorithms to go to the next level. Ad platforms with strong, this is an important concept. Some of you maybe, how many of you, just curious, are on Amazon ads? So some of you obviously are on Amazon ads. How many of you are ads on other retail networks? Let us say anyone on Best Buy or what is called the retail media network and so on. So that's where that emergence you would see. And I'll give one projection. Don't quote me. So that would be my own projection, essentially, how I see 2025. So that will be, I'm pretty sure, interesting for all of you sort of getting into this as well. The last part, I think the machine learning part, that is the part I am excited about. Excited about because I don't want to intrude into individual, there is no PII going to be available. That's out, right? But I think it will really force that human ingenuity to really come out, to utilize those models to take it to a different level. So there is a massive opportunity of AI in digital marketing to take it to the next level. So when I joined from party gaming, that was like phase 1. I would say that the first party cookie phase is phase 2. And that's where I think AI would be a massive driver. I'm extremely bullish on that one. Moving on, again, how do you really kick off the fundamental transformation? Just 4 things I'll leave you with. The first part is you need to have a first-party data strategy. I'll share with you some of the methods you can really track that. The second part is, this is extremely important, deeper understanding of the customer value segments and their engagement patterns, right? So you really have to build a tool, as you were asking, essentially, which sort of captures all of this part. Now, this is where I'll just take a pause and just spend maybe 30 seconds on this one. The thing which is a little complex and which will take a little bit more figuring out, you are at this point in time your customer may not be only from one generation, the customer may be from 4 or 5 generations. I'm talking about different segments. I'm talking about millennials, there are baby boomers, there is Gen X, there is Gen Z. The interesting part is we are seeing very clear what we call the observable trends that Gen Z or digital natives have a completely different buying sequence. Now let me sort of take a step back. And I'm by no means any anthropologist or psychologist and all this stuff. I'll take a step back. So when all that you have known since you were born, like my daughter, is the mobile phone, and all that you have sort of known that you are so comfortable with digital ads, etc., how does their overall behavior differ from someone who just has been introduced to the internet maybe during the pandemic? Right? So think of that from the consumer behavior part. There was a fantastic research done in Oxford in UK, and which showed that typical behavior formation requires about 66 constant interactions, continuous interactions of a certain amount of time. Right? So in this case, the digital natives, the habits are formed and it's different. Well, for baby boomers or even many of the Gen X's, the habits may not be the same, right? So you are not really marketing to one audience or one customer segment. You are marketing to different customer segments, each one of who can have a very different, distinct pattern of user behavior as such. So something to keep in mind, that's the second one. The third one is now suddenly you are shifting the advertising to everything based on consented data, right? So I have given you consent, and that's when you can sort of utilize the data. So the question is, how can brands, or what should retailers do to enhance the brand perception? I'll try to, when I'm discussing this part in a little more detail, I'll try to share with you as to what is my projection for 2025. Where will your customers be in terms of engagement, and where will customers buy from you? So I'll just give you, this is purely Udayan's predictions. So take it with a grain of salt. And the last one is the full funnel advertising. So this, I believe, is one of the solutions I can very clearly see. We'll sort of discuss a little bit about that. So let me jump in. Again, I'll not spend too much time. We'll share, by the way, the decks with all of you. So don't worry about, understand the concept. So I think here I'm trying to explain the concept that brands need to take care of the first party data. These are all the things that, how you can do that, right? I'll not really read through it because, you can refer to it. This is not exhaustive. This is probably just about 60 or 70%. And we will share this deck, so you can definitely go through this part. I'll not spend too much time on this. The next one is interesting. So I talked about our technology or whatever, the customer data tool, intelligence tool. Again, getting to your Klaviyo question, right? So one of the observations we had was pretty interesting. The observation was, in most of the retail e-commerce categories, a small percentage of all the shoppers drive a big percent of the revenue. So in this case, let us say 12 to 15% drive over 40% of the revenue. So we said, isn't the entire concept of digital marketing as it is known today flawed, right? So why not question the first principles? And we said that, what are we measuring against? We are measuring against something called AOV, average order value. Is the world average? How many of you think in this room that you are average? Raise your hand, please. Are you average? Who's average? So I said that if the entire revenue, 40% is being driven by 15%, should we not spend time to understand this 12 to 15%, right? So we built a tool, and we had that lucky confluence of we could use the first party, we could use the third party. It's basically a individualized implementation. We were able to use the tool to get some incredible results. Results in the sense that suddenly when you focused on not serving every customer equally, but really identifying those high-value customers and target them, suddenly your basket size went through the roof. So those are the things I would really want to think about changing. So in the first-party world, should you really focus on a certain set of customers a little more and really build your plan around that? Now you have the advantage of getting high-quality first-party data. How can you really utilize the data to really create or build stronger bonds with that customer? I'll sort of leave you with that particular thought. Because I think one of the other things which I mentioned that this is not going to succeed, which I am very convinced about, if you really look at serving every customer equally, and 70% of the retail e-commerce customers buy only once and never buy again, by the way, from you, right? 70%. In certain cases, if you're from beauty industry, 94%, right? So I think I'm talking about 94% never buy, you're sort of giving every equal love to them. Why don't you really treat these high-value customers as royalty? So that's the point that you're sort of getting into, how you can really utilize the first-party data. The third one, this is my prediction, and sort of bear with me, grain of salt, multiple. So this is where I see the world moving. I'm trying to answer two questions. Where will the shoppers buy from in 2025? So 3 years hence. And where will they engage with brands? How much time will they spend with each one of them? So the first one, which is physical offline store, currently is about, it had gone up to, remember that huge spike in March end 2020, 33% of all retail sales happened online, right? So that has come down. Currently, it's in between 18.5 to 19%. So I am also an analyst for eMarketer or insider research. So we keep on arguing, me and Andrew, who's there, the e-commerce track analyst, that it is between, they say 18%, we are tracking at more about 19% as such. So 19% of all retail sales happens online, right? Includes Amazon, marketplaces, everything. I believe that number will go up to 25%. So 75% becomes physical retail. The second one is marketplaces. So this currently is at about 6%. This percentage, actually, I believe to double. So as we talked about the retail media networks, et cetera, et cetera. So this is not only Amazon, this is like all retail media networks. Why will this happen? And that is where I sort of present a very, I don't know, a challenging concept to you, right? We are all sitting in this room. Suppose this room was empty. So the internet, as it sort of evolved and grew, there were some walled gardens which came up. Amazon is a classic, or any marketplace or such retail network is a walled garden. What if this empty room suddenly got filled by a bunch of walled gardens in the first-party world? Is that what the future is going to look like? Right? So you have currently, let us say, obviously, the big 5 tech companies, and everyone has a walled garden. What if 2025, this room has maybe 50,000 walled gardens? How do you really operate within that sort of a time frame or overall scope? Something which I really want you to think about. I feel retail media networks, at least for the bigger brands, would be a very important growth area. Having said that, there are 3 things which they'll face as a challenge. So if Target creates a retail media network, Best Buy creates a network, these are known brands, right? But there are a lot of companies who are not comparable brands. I mean, so the first challenge that I see is traffic. You can really build your network, but if no one comes, it doesn't have any value, right? It's just a classic thing. So see as to how the thing has evolved overall, right? So if no one, so I feel at the end of it, probably out of those 10,000 retail media networks which sort of come, maybe we'll be left to about 50 to 100 tops, max, right? So but it would definitely be a lot more closed system. We called it walled gardens, essentially, is what we are defining it. But overall, in any case, all this experimentation, et cetera, whenever in history there has been experimentation, innovation, it always has gone up. So this will go up to 12%. Owned websites or assets, so this I'm including the social commerce part as well. So assuming they are driving traffic to your website, this will go up to 13%. So this effectively slow and steady growth will keep on building. And metaverse, this is probably more aspirational or ambitious. I think about 0.1%, so barely something in terms of commerce and so on. So now look at the other one, which is engage. So 48% of the people will go to the store, spend time in the store in 2025, 3 years hence, and really sort of just before they make a part of it. The touch feel component is extremely important, right? So all of these components that I sort of mentioned is things like the contact experience, touch, feel, pre-planned thing. So stores obviously are coming up as more of a destination place, right? So you can really engage with the brands, really get close to it. Again, the second book I can't resist but referring to you, is Martin Lindstrom. Martin Lindstrom is, in my opinion, probably the smartest marketing guy in the world at this point in time. And he has written a book which is called Sensory Marketing. If anyone wants to read, because we are slowly getting to the 5 senses of marketing being utilized. And Martin Lindstrom book is almost like a brand sense is the name of the book. I think that's brand sense would be a highly recommended book. Marketplaces would be very bottom of the funnel. So they are also essentially taking that place, right? Bottom of the funnel and price compare and sort of occupy that. Own websites, I think this is an opportunity where you can really build your brand. Consistent brand experience, exclusive products. I would very strongly recommend you to think about your brand as someone that you can really build a tribe around. So there is a bit of a tribe component which can really happen with your brand as well. You can and you should think about your website or the direct presence as something which facilitates research as well, right? So research facilitator, for a lack of a better word, all of these stuff. And when it comes to metaverse, I believe there is a lot of innovation going on. What we are seeing, again, my personal opinion, is just phase 0.1 or 0.5, right? It'll go through multiple phases. I mean, it'll go through multiple phases. This is probably just not even the phase 1 that we are seeing. But I am pretty conscious that when the entire collective population really sort of works on this part or big chunk, something magical is supposed to happen. What will happen, I don't know. But I think it will be a lot more immersive experiences. I don't think we'll have to wear those clunky, whatever, Oculus or what they call it now. So all of that to sort of really go into that part, it would be a lot more sixth sense sort of a thing, right? Can it be all pervading and so on and so forth. So that's my forecast or estimate. And as I mentioned, more than a grain of salt, but this would be, I think, what I'm looking at. 75% would be the physical retail, 25% would be online. Currently, it is at 19%. I believe that will keep on growing through all the innovations as such. I'll happy to address any questions. I know I've already exceeded the time, which I warned the team that I will. But please feel free to sort of talk to me separately outside. Happy to answer any question, but I'll sort of keep going very quickly. So this is, again, an important concept. So the first one is the prediction. The second one is, you talk about the funnel and all that stuff. Now, consider for a moment this room has walled gardens, right? So we are separating the room and creating those cubicles within the room. Each cubicle, you really have to change the approach of marketing that you own the entire world, the room, from what are the cubicles that you really want to own, right? And can you really build a funnel? Very important concept, very, very important concept. You were building a funnel in the entire room. Now you have 50 cubicles in this room. Inside every cubicle, you are building that funnel. Let us say Google cubicle, I'm building the funnel. And that's what we call the full funnel marketing. So you can't say that I'll just only do text ads and why I'm not really getting results. You will not get results, I can guarantee you that. And I'm using the word guarantee. Because you have really broken, you have not really engaged the customer through the entire journey within the Google walled garden. Right? Similarly, Amazon, why I'm not really getting results? Because you have not really engaged the customer through the entire walled garden. How do you engage? There are different formats, right? Google, for example, has YouTube videos that obviously discover the display part and so on and so forth. So you really have to ensure that within the cubicle, and Google has a pretty big cubicle, I can assure you that. And with the GA4, it will become even bigger, in my opinion, right? So why would you not want to think about this funnel within that cubicle, build it out entirely? That's my, I think, one concept. So what happens, now one of you, where is Facebook, where is Meta, where is social media there? The second part of this concept is, we are all sitting in this room, let us say there are cubicles, we are all breathing the same air, right? So social media is the air. Essentially, you think about your brand, you essentially cannot afford to think of what is my ROI, because you'll not be able to track ROI. You have to break the funnel in social. Again, a very difficult concept for our performance marketers to wrap our heads around. You have to break the funnel with Meta or whatever. I'm just giving Meta as an example. TikTok is becoming a lot more sort of a popular now, right? So that's something to think of, right? We are all breathing the air. That air is essentially the social interactions. Social media was never supposed to be a performance marketing. Who gave you the permission for collecting the data? I never gave you the permission for collecting the data, right? You were collecting the data because of multiple reasons, right? But in this case, in the first-party world, they will not have the data. They will not be able to build the data as much as well. They probably will try to, obviously. Everyone tries to build their own nice walled garden, but they will not be able to. So, but can you really think of social media in a different way that they are like air, that you have to be present in the right place at the right time with the right message and engage the customers in a different way and speak with them in a responsible manner. So that's my thought. Think of social media as something which helps elevate your overall brand presence, your brand identity, your brand image, and helps you tell a much more responsible and engaging story with your customers. And that's where it is. So it's an important slide, and I'm happy to discuss this at the end of it. But that's what so the first concept is in this entire room, we are there. We had about 5 cubicles. Now we'll have in the same room 50 cubicles. What are the cubicles that you really want to build your funnel on? And how exactly will you go about building the funnel? When I talk about building the funnel, I'm talking about something like this. This is something, I mean, we had worked very closely with the Google team to build a funnel like this, right? So you really have a mindset, goal, channel investment, and potential KPIs. So you really have the different part, the awareness, again, the same, the idea framework, effectively, right? So you're going to go into the YouTube, discovery, and all that stuff, potential KPIs. The KPIs also will have to really morph. It has to be more holistic as well as more specific as well. You can't keep on focusing, this is my only YouTube KPI, or this is my only search KPI. That would be a wrong thing to do because it's just one funnel, remember, right? So what we have, now getting back to your Klaviyo question, so this is essentially what we have been able to do. I mean, we had a team, unfortunately, they couldn't attend today. So we tried this out with one of our customers. They are a leading product, a beauty product company. And we built this tool, Elixir Insights, to utilize their first-party data, merge with the third-party data, right? So we are getting the data from Google, collecting all of this stuff. We are using the first-party data, and we are using machine learning algorithms to build out the high-value customer personas, right? These are high-value customers, and that's get automatically built, and we are realizing the incredible power of machine learning. Once we really have built those high-value customers, what we do, so let us say Francesca is a high-value customer. We use that to feed in the Google remarketing algorithms, right? And we use something called a value-based bidding, which is, again, more of a machine learning-driven module that Google has. The results we were able to get for this company, they were spending just about $7,000 per week was their spend on just this particular campaign. Prior to really testing this combination of first-party and third-party, they got about $24,000 in terms of revenue that we were making, attributable revenue, which would be a challenge later. That went up to $69,000 now, right? So which is a 3.5 times jump. So you have to know what is your first-party data strategy, merge both of them, have a tool. Luckily, we have Elixir Insight that we have built, and combine all of this part, and then you decide how much should you want to advertise on YouTube, Discover, and Search, and so on, and spend the budget as well. And this was the proof, essentially, directly, which we sort of got as to how the world tomorrow may actually look like. So I'll just wrap up my presentation, and again, happy to have any conversation separately as well. So as the cookie crumbles, the digital marketing will really have to have a well-planned first-P data strategy. We have to talk full funnel. You can't really afford to talk keyword level and individual bottom of the funnel level. And finally, you have to tap into the power of AI-powered marketing to take it to the next level. Well, thank you very much. I know I've exceeded my time by 15 minutes. So as I sort of introduce you to the next Q&A, I think we have gone through it. I'm sorry, I'm rushing, but again, happy to. So let me introduce Billy first. So Billy has been working with the NetElixir team extremely closely. And really, he has been almost like our guinea pigs for all the crazy ideas which we come up with all the time. He has been of tremendous support. And honestly speaking, today's the entire arrangement couldn't have been possible without Billy, Drew, Francesca, Stefano, and the entire team. So a big thank you, Billy. And he's our agency development manager. And we also have Drew. Drew has been working very closely with Billy to really lead our entire account. So Kenny talked about the Google Leadership Circle. One of the bragging rights that we have is one of the 12 agencies which are there and so on. So Billy and Drew lead that relationship. So with that, Billy and Drew, please. I have taken 15 minutes.
Thank you very much, Udayan. Can everyone hear me? Everyone? I'm from North Jersey, so it's not usually a problem when I ask that question, but believe it or not, I'm actually not Italian with this SPF 50 skin like most of my friends in New Jersey, but I still have the volume just from growing up there. So as Udayan mentioned, my name's Billy McClellan. I'm the agency development manager on the NetElixir business. What does that mean? I work with NetElixir at scale to make sure that NetElixir and their customers are armed with the latest and greatest in the industry, making sure they're up to speed on things like betas, industry trends, et cetera. And those benefits have trickled down, obviously, to Client Direct, which is staffed by the rest of my team. Great. So what is Billy doing up here today? What are we going to talk about? The purpose of our section, at least from a Google perspective, is to talk about how we can use the Google suite of products within the larger industry, really, and within a modern marketing plan to reach the right people at the right time. For a long time, people were using one channel in a silo. What we've come to learn over time is that these channels are simply better together. So that's what we'll talk about today. And again, if you have any questions along the way, we have those mics. If you want to toss around, feel free to shoot it my way. But let's start talking about the one Google approach. You probably saw in my bio, prior to Google, I actually spent 5 years at a creative agency. Very different way of thinking than the world I'm in now, but I actually think it helped me to have a different perspective. So like Udayan and Tausif and team have heard, a lot of the times, whenever I start to break down an industry scenario, a strategy, I like to start with today's consumer and consumer behavior. So I'll start with a quick story. I was at a comedy show. It was a small, intimate venue, and I've never really been to a comedy show. I actually pretty fun. But anyway, I was sitting there, and they were asking for a few brave volunteers to go up, and it's kind of like the roast, I assume. So I said, I'm not going up there. Are you crazy? So I sat in my chair, and I've never been more thankful. Because what happened is they brought the volunteers on stage and they said, are you okay with us, making fun of you a little bit? And because they volunteered, the people said, of course, yeah, sure, no problem. So the comedian goes, okay, great, give me your phones. And then all of a sudden they started this, everyone's faces kind of went dead silent. They're like, I don't like the idea of this. And what the comedian says, he said, look, I'm going to try to guess what you're like as a person. I know nothing about you, but I'm going to start to build a persona of you, and then I'm going to make fun of it. Is that okay? Everyone's a little nervous, but they said sure. So what happened is they pulled up search history. They went to the Google search app from everyone, and they just looked at their last 6 or 7 searches. And as you can imagine, it was pretty cringeworthy. Right, so they started to go through, hey, are you really looking to buy one of these? Or, hey, do you really think that guy's that good looking, So they start to go through that, and after a while, and after the ribbing, everyone takes their turn, everyone's sweating. It just became a room full of laughs. And so at the end, the comedian sits there and he says, I'm sorry, thank you for being a good sport. I'm sure that that's not really the type of person you are or what you're like. And this girl started nervously giggling, and she raised her hand. He's like, okay, this isn't school. You don't have to raise your hand. And she goes, actually, that's exactly what I'm like. And that was a holy crap moment for me, because I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my gosh, I guess as uncomfortable as that is, it is true how honest people are with search. There's this saying that people like to say, I think Drew said he read it in a book. I thought I came up with it. I guess I didn't. You will lie to your doctor, right? You go for your annual physical. They say, how many drinks do you have a week? Just, I'm a fitness fanatic. I mean, I'll have a glass of wine at dinner with my wife, right? But I drive. Don't have to worry about me. But when I get to my car, before I leave, I Google, is it bad to have 2 bottles of wine on a Saturday night at dinner? Right? So there's a truth here where people are inherently honest with Google. But it's not just honesty for honesty's sake. It is indicative of the type of things they're looking for, looking to purchase, looking to learn more about. I don't know what's with the comedy theme. I didn't even do that, and I've been 2 comedy shows in my life. But this was a quote from Aziz Ansari. He was doing a bit on how the internet just helps him to just waste time. And within the bit, he says, without even thinking about it, I Googled best toothbrush. And it got a laugh because it matched up with his shtick. But at the end of the day, this is a real human truth. When we have something in our brain where we are looking for best, we are looking for near me, something that is potentially going to get our business or attention, we simply go and Google it. I have my nephew's, he's turning 3. I have his birthday coming up. I didn't know what to get him. I Googled right away, best gifts for 3-year-olds. And then you start to get into the sizing, and he's a big kid, so that was confusing. But point being here, there is a ton of search activity happening, so much so that we can say it's 3.6 billion searches happening on Google every single day. And these aren't just searches for search's sake. These are people raising their hands saying, hello, I am interested in this. I am looking for information on that. Come get me. My business is here for the taking. Whether they know it or not, I told you a few stories about it subconscious, but this is happening every day. And what we're doing is using those signals to make them actionable through advertising. So with that, 3.6 billion every day, big number. I'd also like to show this stat, that 15% of queries on google.com are new every single day. Whenever I see this stat, it blows my mind. I'm like, how many people have been Google? Google's a search company. We were built on search. How is this number still holding? One, this tells me there's more people. They're doing more searches. There's more signals every single day, and we'll get into that in a second. But there's constant stimuli that is bringing people to search for more information. What we'd also say is because this truth holds true, consumers are continuing to evolve, not just their queries and what they're searching, how they're using the internet, and how they use Google to feed their needs from a business perspective, a consumer perspective, etc. So put simply, I guess I work at Google, so I should be saying this, search is great, right? As you're building any modern strategy, it should be a key component of your marketing mix. It should be there as a catch-all because it's going to be an efficient driver, and I'll get to that in a second. But search is the gateway to purchase decisions. People are raising their hands saying, hey, I'd like more information on this. Come get me, like I mentioned. Or they're simply looking for more information and more options. So 86% of people are actually going to Google for ideas on what to buy. Remember, like my nephew's birthday that I have. I want you to think about this for a second. I want everyone to take a pause and think about how you use search in your daily life. Don't say it out loud, please, because I think some of that should stay with you all. But just think about it, right? If you think about how modern search is used, I want to ask this group, when was the last time you typed in www.something.com? Yesterday. Okay, well, that makes one of us. So I would say, look, but don't let this baby face fool you. I had dial-up internet when I was younger, too. I remember having to go www.aol.com. URLs, that was the internet. Search today has replaced the URL. If I want something, whether it's a brand or an idea or what I'm looking for, I am simply opening up Chrome and I'm typing that in, trying to cut out any other noise and going right to that website. And guess what? Sometimes someone else will come in and swoop away my business. But I thought this was fascinating. I was trying to explain search to one of my friends who doesn't work in this industry, and I used that example, and he was like, "Whoa, dude, that hurt." I'm like, "No, it's true." So search is great. I mentioned that. I'm a firm believer in it. Google is built on it. Without it, quite frankly, I wouldn't have a job. We wouldn't have this room. But as we move into the modern marketing mix, I want to talk to you about the fact that search is no longer enough on its own. What do I mean by that? So, back in the day when search was first built and when just kind of digital marketing came to light, there was basically a triggered need. Someone went and searched, they bought. If I wanted pants, I searched men's pants. I looked at ones that looked nice, and I bought right then and there. Nowadays, it doesn't really go from trigger to purchase. Of course, there was always a exploratory period where you'd be considering a few different options, but because of the amount of different brands in the space, regardless of the industry, the amount of different messaging that you're being served throughout your path to purchase, the exploration and evaluation phases now are 1, much bigger, 2, tied together, and 3, not linear. I mean, how many times have you searched for something where you thought you had your mind made up and you're doing your research and you say, well, actually, this seems a little better. I'm going to look into this. It's not just because of competitive advertising. It's the new consumer. They have more information, so they have more options. So, in fact, I talk about the exploration and the evaluation stages being bigger and more complex now. Up to 44% of consumers, when they're in that kind of infinity loop there, will actually switch brands. That's almost 1 in 2. So if I'm only invested in search and I'm betting on search, I'm not doing anything to affect those 1 in 2 who may be leaving me prior to actually hitting those keys on keyboard or on mobile. So the way I like to put it, and when I first came over from my creative agency, I was talking to some folks here really smart, like media people through and through, metrics driven, and they're telling me why search is great. And they said, well, why do you think it's great? I said, well, search is like a great score, and I'm sorry for the Space Jam gif, and I'm team Michael Jordan, not LeBron, by the way. Search is like a great score because it's going to be your most efficient. It's going to be there to drive business needs and results, and it should be a major part of any strategy. Quite frankly, it's probably going to be your best player. But I say that to say that, look, how many of you have been to a game, whether it's like Little League, B-ball, or actually college or pro level, where you see a really good player on a really bad team? You're like, this person is great, but they just simply can't do it by themselves. Search is a great score because it's great on its own, but like any great score, it's going to do better with some help. Somebody to get it open shot. Someone to say like, hey, I'll take care of the defense and get you a break for now. So put simply, I'd like to call out, we're going to talk about YouTube today. No surprise, I'm sure you expected to hear about YouTube when you came to Google, but the phrase YouTube amplifies search seems really fancy. Let's break that down. I talk about how search and YouTube actually work together. I like to describe them as kind of Batman and Robin. They're a team. So I talked about all those searches, all those hand-raising activities that we mentioned, but more than half of the people searching, so I just mentioned 3.6 billion every single day, more than half of the people searching for a product on Google are immediately going to YouTube to learn more about it. So whether it's testimonials, customer reviews, just simply more information to see the product moving, to see the product in space, YouTube is now part of that decision tree that we talked about in the exploration phase. And guess what? If you're still just sitting in search and someone else sees this stat, they're going to be ahead of you from the jump. And so I don't just say that as a sales tactic or as someone who works here. We have data that proves it. So we went out and studied this, and we saw advertisers running YouTube video in addition to their search campaigns. We're seeing 8% higher conversion volume, 3% higher conversion rates, and a 4% more efficient CPA. So without knowing all of you individually, we're in business. If I tell you that a tool is going to help make you money while it's going to save you money, you're going to start shaking my hand and say, let's sit down and talk. YouTube has the ability to do that, particularly when it's paired with search. So given the spirit of today's session, let's talk about NetElixir for a second. We had a big client. They're one of the more substantial clients over at NetElixir, and they were doing great in search, but we had a feeling they might be tapped out here. We said, you can generate more demand. We actually think you're losing share, and we think there's a considerable opportunity here to kind of mess around in that messy middle, which I'll get to in a second. They ran their first trial ever on YouTube, and we saw as a result that on average for every impression, and I'm talking about millions of impressions here on YouTube based on the scale, we were seeing an incremental 2 searches per impression. So that in and of itself, there's smart people in this room, you could tell what role YouTube's playing here and how it is driving purchase intent, and you see that Batman and Robin team effect at play. More importantly, it wasn't just incremental searches. We saw business results. We used something called the Brand Lift Study, which we'll touch on in a second, but we saw that over 200,000 new customers, when surveyed this brand against their competitors, were now starting to consider this brand over the competition. So it's not just scale, it brings business results. Point being, customers are coming to YouTube at all different stages of their buying process and throughout that customer journey. And as you look at this, you saw the infinity loop before. Not only is YouTube well served to serve as a trigger at the top of the funnel, right? And we say funnel, but this is the modern look of it. 70% of YouTube viewers saying YouTube makes them more aware of brands. So 7 in 10 are saying, boom, trigger. 50%, when we talk about that messy middle, 50% of shoppers say online video has helped them decide which specific brand to buy, right? So they started their process, they were unsure, they got to the exploration phase, YouTube closed the deal. And then even if they got through that, when you look at purchases, we have formats, 70% of YouTube viewers say they bought a brand as a result of just seeing it on YouTube, probably with no intention. So again, a lot of power here when it comes to driving purchases, driving awareness, driving consideration. And I'm going to actually turn it over to Drew, who's going to talk you through some more specific tactics as you look to bring this to life.
Thank you for that tee up, Billy. So I think he did a really good job of just setting up, how today's user journey is so complex. For certain industries, we're seeing up to 500 different touch points before someone actually makes a purchase. And so what you were doing 5, 10, 15 years ago, all those tried and true methods really are not going to work as well as they do today. So the question becomes, how do we evolve our marketing strategies for today's modern consumer? One that is a bit more disloyal, one that is very complex as far as their user journey. How do we make sure that we are reaching them at the right place, at the right time, with the right message? I also want to start out this presentation just with a story, a little case study. I want to ask the group here, who in this room is a fan of the brand Lululemon? Awesome. So we have like half the crowd. I see many different genders, many different ages. There's a lot of people in the room. I myself am a fan. I see some teammates in the back that are huge brand loyalists. But I bring this up because, as most of us know, this brand started in the late 90s, early 2000s, and their whole audience was a small set of the yoga community. Their marketing messages spoke to female yogis. They built community around it. All their marketing messages were tailored to that community. But then they reached an inflection point where, 5 years ago, they said, hey, we're doing really well here. We have a really healthy ROI. Our business is healthy. We're growing quite a bit. But what they saw was a huge untapped market. So if you look at them today, this is today's Lululemon customer in addition to what they were doing before. And I bring that up because a lot of brands are facing that same issue where, again, you're probably growing profitably, you have great ROI, you're looking at your numbers and you're saying we're growing healthily year over year. But for those of you who really want to take the next step, how do you find those new audiences? You can't continue speaking to one community, one small group of customers. You're just setting yourself up for failure in the long run if you're not evolving with that consumer today. So Billy kind of talked about this. We call it the messy middle. What we have seen in traditional marketing tactics is that you have your brand marketers on one side and then you have your performance marketers on one side. So on the brand side, you have like your offline media, TV, radio, print, out of home, et cetera, and that's how you build an initial awareness. Then on the other side, you have your digital marketers and like folks like NetElixir who do a really good job of performance marketing, really good at search, shopping, social, just like lower funnel tactics that really help your ROI and just get customers who already know about your brand to convert. But what we're seeing today, as Billy kind of alluded to, is that this model is very outdated. So no longer can you have these teams sitting in silos. You really need to be able to marry the two. And I think Udain did a good job of how you can make that happen when you have a clear, good first-party data strategy. And so the days of like the brand team and the performance team sitting in opposite sides, not sharing data, not talking to each other, those days are long gone. And if you do continue on with a strategy like that, I can promise you competitors that you are working with and that work closely with Google are ones that are doing what you see on the right-hand side. So again, how do we get that consumer from initial awareness down to consideration and down to action, especially in light of this new user journey today? So again, we're going to talk a lot about YouTube today because that is one of our largest products here at Google. A lot of you are probably asking, what is full funnel on YouTube? I'm sure probably 99% of the users in this room are YouTube users, myself included. You probably have seen ads on them, and you're wondering, how do I get involved in that, and like where should I be investing, what products, what audiences, et cetera. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. And to put it simply, I like to break down just like two easy buckets. So just awareness and action. On the left-hand side, you have awareness. That is all about building awareness. If you think about legacy TV campaigns, radio campaigns, like everything is bought on reach and frequency goals, and it's just like connecting with users who are not already in your user base. And then on the right-hand side, we have our action campaigns. So, that is when you want to capture demand. That is when you want to leverage audiences such as remarketing lists, customer match lists, in-market audiences that we have here in Google. That is when you want to just get people to convert that might already know about your brand and bring them down to convert on your website. So I'm not going to talk about all these today, but here is just a glimpse of some of the products that we have on YouTube that might make sense for your brand depending on who you're trying to go after. Moving down the funnel, so to speak, on the top-hand side, we have our awareness-based formats such as YouTube Select, mastheads, which are kind of like our homepage ads that you can target now, and then our reach campaigns. And then moving down the funnel, you have your discovery and action. If I'm not making myself clear enough, think about it this way: video reach, getting the most efficient reach at the lowest cost, and then action, an action-based format that is mixed together to efficiently get you the conversions at the lowest CPA. So I may not have convinced you yet. You might be like, I'm running a very good search and shopping campaign. I'm seeing very healthy growth. I'm seeing a good ROAS, all that good stuff. You're probably asking yourself, why should I be investing in both awareness and action? And there's two reasons that I think about. And number one is just ultimately you're going to pay more for your customers in the long run. We'll talk about this and what that means in a second, but essentially what it boils down to is that the less people that know your brand, it's tougher to actually reach them and convert them into your actual user base. And then number two is eventually running out of users. So if you go back to my Lululemon example, they had an awesome strategy where they were connecting with a female yoga community. They said, holy shit, there's this whole untapped community of like anyone who just wants comfy clothes or like nice workout gear, men, women, like whatever you are, like that's our audience now. And they said, we're running a healthy business, but we are gonna run out, and this is a pivot that we need to make as a company. So let's talk about these and unpack these a bit. So number one, if you are only concentrating on one side of the funnel, we see a lot of brands today that will just do search and shopping and then maybe add in like a remarketing campaign on video. And you're gonna probably see a bit of success there, but ultimately, you're talking to the same people, and the risk that you run is that you're gonna pay more for customers in the long run. So this is an example from the financial industry, but what we see across almost all industries is that awareness is a very strong predictor of future choice. So you can see here, like if you're the Chases of the world, if you're the Wells Fargos of the world, the more people that are aware of you and like think of you in a high light, ultimately they're probably going to pick you versus a competitor that they might not know about. And we see this across all industries. And when you think about it, like if we have search marketers in this room, you know, a lot of your best converting keywords are going to be those brand keywords. And you know, if people don't know your brand, you're ultimately going to end up paying more for those clicks. Your campaigns are going to be less efficient. People aren't going to know about you. It's much, much harder to reach that customer. If you do have that full funnel strategy where you are bringing down people from the awareness phase to consideration to action and conversion, that's where the magic happens. And this is an awesome chart, I thought as well. So this is a CPG example, but we saw that we looked at conversion rates for a brand that was running, you know, just an awareness campaign, just a consideration campaign, and just an action campaign. So of course you can see, like, for your conversion rates, if you're just running an awareness campaign or a consideration campaign, not going to be that high. That makes sense. Like that's when you want to reach customers for the first time. They're not ready to buy, but you are investing in building your brand. So conversion rates are low. The third one, if you're just running a search campaign, you know, Billy teed it up well. Google built our business today on search, and it's a very effective campaign tactic. And you know, 9.47% conversion rate. Like, who's gonna argue with that? That's pretty damn solid, if you ask me. But where we see the magic happen is when you layer on the full funnel. So if you look, you know, if you have an action plus consideration campaign, if you have an action or awareness campaign, those conversion rates start to jump. And then lastly, on the bottom there, that's where the true magic happens, where, again, you have the awareness, you have the consideration, you have the action, and you know, if you jump from 9.4% conversion rate to 16.4, you'll all be doing high fives for those of you in the marketing business here. If I have not convinced you still on this, as far as like paying more in the long run, I think Billy's stats kind of spoke to this in the fact that your conversion rates go up, your search CPAs ultimately go down in the long run. And what we're also seeing that for video, for advertisers who are on video action and then introduce 2 or more brand advertising formats, they also see a 9% increase in conversions on average. So again, like very, very powerful stats. We get a lot of questions of like, we don't think investing in brand is worthwhile. Like, we don't see the direct return. That's a huge question that almost every organization and company here has probably wrestled with. But hopefully some of these stats will show you like the power and the magic of combining all these and just making sure you're reaching those new customers, you're reaching users outside of your current user base, and then just bringing them down the funnel and hopefully building your brand. And then risk number 2, so just running out of users. You know, I thought this was a cool chart. We have like all these different formats. You're probably wondering, like, aren't the same audiences on video action as they are on video reach? Like, why would I be running 2 different formats if I can reach that same user in each one? And the fact is we actually see a very small overlap between the 2. So this was an example from a B2B company where they were running video action and then a true reach campaign on the side. You know, of those 3.2 million users that they reached across these 2, we only saw an audience overlap of 7%. So it just kind of speaks to the fact that if you are only talking to those same users that you have and like trying to build your business that way, again, you're gonna see some small growth, you're gonna see some good results, but the magic happens where you start reaching more of those people. And I go back to my Lululemon example, but again, a lot of business here are probably wondering, like, how do I take the next step? How do I reach beyond what I'm currently doing? Again, it's reaching those new audiences. You know, again, you're going to be very successful if you have a good first-party data strategy as far as reaching your current base. But I think a lot of us in the room want to really know, like, how do I actually take the next step and take the next level? It really is about pivoting and finding those new audiences. And you know, NetElixir is great at doing this. We are great at doing this, and we can help you through that process. Any pitfalls? So hopefully I've sold everyone here. I see some smiles and head nods, so I'll take that as a good sign. Any pitfalls? And I kind of alluded to this earlier, but you know, measurement is very, very tough. And what I see happen a lot is that, you know, you run a video campaign and you don't see a ton of conversions right away. Like you run this campaign, not many people are converting. And the reason that is because a lot of what's happening is that your measurement is not set up to measure what the impact is accurately. So on the left-hand side, this is what we see a lot of advertisers doing. They measure on a last click basis. Hopefully no one in this room is still doing that. But if you think about your own user behavior, if I'm going to YouTube and I'm trying to watch like soccer highlights, the last thing in the world I want to do is click off, if I watch an ad, like click that and like not watch my soccer highlights. I want that right away. But what might happen is I will watch that ad, I'll watch 15 seconds of that or 10 seconds, whatever it is. I'll be exposed, and then 5 hours later, I'll be like, oh shit, I saw that ad for Lululemon. I should probably go buy some new workout shorts. And if you're not measuring correctly, that is a huge, huge, huge loss. And that is a huge pitfall. So measurement, make sure you get right. NetElixir, as you know, is some of the best in the business as far as doing this. So making sure you are capturing all those users that you are exposing with your ads. And just put simply, long-term growth relies on the right measurement strategy. I think a lot of people, when it comes to things like YouTube, they're expecting, like I said, immediate results. That just simply is not going to happen. That's not where the magic happens. We want brands to think more long-term. I realize that's tough when you have specific goals and ROAS goals and all that. But eventually, we're all about building brands. We want to help businesses grow long-term. You can continue to do your search, you continue to do your shopping. But again, where that magic happens is when you think long-term and more holistically about your full funnel strategy. Very wordy slide, but if we go down from what you can be measuring as well, in addition to conversions, we have a lot of tools, both first party and third party, that we can help set you up with. So, on the higher end, like reach and frequency, that's how the TV industry works. Like we have stats, we have reports around that we can help you with. Billy alluded to a execution we did with one of their big customers around measuring brand lift. So there's things you can measure around like ad recall, brand consideration, brand favorability, purchase intent. So all these types of different metrics, we can help you see if your YouTube campaigns are having impact there. And then lastly, when we think about like the action campaigns, that's when you can start measuring things like sales, app installs for those with apps, and then store visits, so going into the store. All right, is everyone sold on YouTube now? Can I see some hands? Like, yeah, thank you in the back, love it. Cool, I think I got like 40% of the crowd, that's pretty good. But what if I told you you could get 28% more conversions with one simple addition? Who would sign up for that? Yeah, all right. So that is where display comes into effect. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on here because I think we all know like what display ads do. We have probably all run them. We've probably faced challenges with them. We probably have our own thoughts. But the great thing about display ads, and like I'm not a huge fan of like our legacy display ads. I'll just say that. I probably shouldn't say that, but we have some cool new innovative formats that are less, like those standard like static banners that we all just look over and don't even click ever. But we have some new formats that I think are really helpful, and the stats kind of prove that out. So when we think about feeds, I think a lot of us in this room are probably users of things like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, things like that. And what we see is that our feeds are very, very important. We spend a lot of time in them each day. We look at content in them. We are finding new products. So 82% of feed users do look for ideas and inspirations when shopping on their favorite feeds. So people aren't just going to see baby pictures. They're also going to see like what brands are doing on there. And then when users are exposed to brands in the feed, 85% of customers do take action within 24 hours of discovering new products. So very, very powerful stats as far as like how big feed-based advertising is today. And what we have introduced in the past few years is what we call discovery ads. So on the left-hand side is just our video action campaigns, but on the right-hand side is what discovery ads are. So this is our feed-based display advertising solution. So you can advertise in the YouTube home feed. If you go to google.com and scroll down, or if you are on a Pixel device, if you go to the left-hand side, we have what we call Discover Feed. So it's where you can just see like news stories of the day and all that good stuff. A lot of time spent in that, and you can see ads there as well. And then lastly, for the Gmail users in the room, you've probably seen these ads as well. But essentially, Discovery will run across those three there and use all the audience signals, use all the bidding signals that you can get with search. And what we see is that if you do marry the two, video action and discovery, this all sounds great. It's a really engaging format. What does this ultimately mean for my business? And what we see is that when these two are used together, we see lifts in favorability up to 2.7x, lifts in consideration almost or more than double, and then lifts in purchase intent 1.4x. So really, really powerful stuff. So there's all like kind of light metrics. You probably are wondering like, what is the actual, what impacts my conversion on my bottom line? And what we have seen is that advertisers that have adopted video action alongside search, alongside display / discovery, we see up to 20 to 28% more conversions on average when you are measuring at the account level. So again, really, really powerful stuff. It's all about having this full funnel marketing strategy. Again, you're gonna be able to build your business probably methodically, like very well if you do still continue to play just in that search and shopping. But for those of you in this room that really do wanna take the next level, the magic really happens when you start adding in some more of those full funnel tactics. So I spoke a lot, just a summary here. It's becoming harder than ever to retain your customers, as we all know in this room. It's getting harder than ever to reach new customers. We know customers today are very fickle. They're less brand loyal than ever. Like, how do we reach these new customers? How do we build our business? The solution that we think here at Google is having that full funnel holistic marketing strategy. And you can do that through search, shopping, discovery, video, and that's where the magic happens. So that's it for me. We'll open it up for some questions for the group if you all have any. And Billy, you can come up here as well.
I guess the information was that good.
I guess so.
No questions, thoughts, concerns, pushback? Anyone try this and not work? I saw a hand go up for pushback. That's scary.
Oh, you have your own block. I don't need to go over there.
I have my own. I saw the brand lift. Do you guys also offer conversion lift tests?
We do at certain budget minimums, yes. Their conversion lifts is a bit tougher just due to like privacy standards and making sure we have statistically significant data. So yes, we do have conversion lift studies. They're less frequent than brand lift, which are like smaller minimums. But if you have a Google team working with you, like definitely reach out to them and they can help you with that.
Okay, and that will be on YouTube?
That would be on YouTube specifically, yes.
Any other questions? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I mean, look, there's some really cool things we talk about. Some of these formats, you can use things like custom intent, where you use your top 5 performing search keywords. And basically, if I type in one of your keywords, I'm going to see an ad on YouTube or Discovery within 7 days. Stuff like that is really cool. And like as we start to get into these conversations with you separately or as one-offs, we can get into the specifics. Any other questions? Questions around creative?
One more from me.
Yeah.
So recently we started to use Performance Max. I saw that you guys didn't really mention that, but do you have any, any detail about it? Because for us, so it's been hard to understand why it's working. It's definitely working, but it's hard to tell why exactly.
I said that when I first met my wife, too. I was like, I think it's working, but I don't know why. So we can break that down on a product-specific level. I mean, on average, we are seeing people using Performance Max seeing an uplift of about 12% in conversions at a similar CPA when compared to just using other channels, in silos. Why is that? It's because it's using machine learning across all of Google. It's optimizing to one goal. So rather being like, hey, shopping, go do this. Video, do that. Discovery, do this. It's using one goal at the top of the campaign. And it's basically like that's the general of the army. And then all the other channels take their marching orders and say, we're going to go out and try to serve that one goal. And it's going to use machine learning to serve the right ad to the right person at the right time. So essentially, you're not as limited to other channels. And with that, more machine learning, more data drives better results. So that's the high-level overview, but we're always happy to share more specifics as well.
With everything that was being said earlier from NetElixir as well as with the presentation you had, so it seems that utilizing a centralized place or a company that offers, a space where you have a number of users is the best way to help drive your brand, like say through you, because it's not really third-party cookies, because you have Google, you have YouTube, and you have all these other avenues in which people can you can share that same information. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, look, what's really cool about this, when you're using everything, we talk about a one Google experience. What that means is you can use the channels by themselves, right? But you can use signals together. So most people think like, all right, I'm going to use YouTube to drive search, like we talked about. But then when I mention things like custom intent audiences, where you're using top 5 keywords, you can work up funnel to be like, oh, I'm going to take what people are searching in search and find them on YouTube. So what's cool about having that one centralized hub, like you mentioned, one, you're going to learn across campaigns. 2, you might pick something up, for example, saying like, hey, this audience we're running in Discovery has been great. Why are we not running it in YouTube? And then you can use all the remarketing benefits throughout too. I mean, as data gets harder to measure, you want to make sure that you are giving the machine learning algorithms, which we believe in, I'm sure many of you do too. You want to give them as much data as possible to continue to learn and get better. The best way of doing that is servicing all your campaigns, your goals and needs in one place, such as Google.
I think the other part of your question that you may have been touching on is just like, how do we leverage like audience and like data? Because a lot of times you could inject like third-party data into platforms like Google. Where we see the power is, you know, we have 8 platforms with over 1 billion users each. So like Gmail, search, YouTube, et cetera, Chrome, like all that good stuff. And the beauty of that is that we can get signals from one platform and see what they're doing all across the Google ecosystem based upon their logged in data. So while you can't do as much with third-party data as with the you know, as the cookie crumbles, as Udayan put it, you can still leverage our data within Google and use it in your platform, or use it within your marketing strategies across the Google networks. So that is one way to leverage that as well.
I wanted to know if there are kind of general data or analytics that say what type of videos perform best for YouTube ads. Like, for example, testimonials, do they typically do better as an ad versus an unboxing? Or is that very situational for the company?
Yes, we have a team here at Google called Creative Works, and literally what they do is just like look at thousands of videos a day and see what performs the best. So I don't want to give you a blanket answer because it really depends on like what your objective is. Like if you are trying to influence awareness, a certain type of creative will work better than like if you're trying to get someone to convert. So it's not like a, you know, cut and dry answer I can give you. With that said, we do have like a lot of studies depending on like your industry, your marketing objective. We have what we call the ABCDs of creative: attract, brand, connect, and direct. If you keep those in mind and like reach out to your Google team, they'll be able to help you, walk you through some of those best practices.
Leveraging that question, a lot of small companies have challenges in figuring out how to make the video, the quality of the video. Should it be pithy? You know, how long it should be, those kinds of things. Do you have any thoughts in terms of the quality of the video?
So yeah, quality does help. Like creative, more than like any other thing out there, is going to be your best driver of campaign success. So it's good you're asking the question because you do know it is very important, which it is. We do have a bunch of programs here at Google that can help with video creation. We have, at a very basic level, a tool called Video Builder, where you can input a few static images, some text, some audio, and it will spit out like a 15, 30-second video that is adhering to our best practices. If you are working with NetElixir as well, they're part of our Google Premier partnership. They have access, all their clients have access to a program where we will set you up all as added value, like with a YouTube spend commitment, but we will set you up with a fully produced like new video from scratch. So that is also another great option that you can take advantage of as well. But we do realize like the importance of creative, especially for smaller businesses. So I would say work with NetElixir if you aren't already, and if you are, like we can definitely help you with that creation.
And to add to that too, I would say like when you think about it, if there's 2 competitors in this room, right? Everyone can buy Google, everyone can use the same audiences, albeit like not including first party, but when we use things like in the market for so-and-so, everybody can use that. The same 2 competitors can go after that same audience. The only true differentiator in that space is going to be the creative. So when you think about the power of creative, I think that we have the multiplication stats of what good creative does, but we can pair you with the right solutions on our end to make sure you feel comfortable and supported through that space, because we don't want you to run bad creative either, because then it's not going to work and you're not going to come back to us. So we've started to develop these teams and tools internally to kind of arm you with those skills, and we can carry that offline as well.
Yeah, so are there any plans for YouTube or any other Google product, and maybe you guys already have this, I'm not aware, that is going to offer live commerce event capabilities so that we can utilize the live commerce event to, sell product, but also utilize your first-party data to target and find customers to come to the event?
It's a great question. I think look, when you look at the writing on the wall for where the industry's going, right, in terms of engagement, being in live audience, I think during COVID, we all missed live experiences, right? And since then, we've seen that bounce back, ticket sales, whatever. All these types of industries are really going to start to take off. And if there is an ability, look, we're all in the business of making money. If there is an opportunity for money to be made at these events based on Google's resources, tech, et cetera, I would say that you can expect Google will have some sort of role or play a part in that. I know we've tapped around and playing around with things with like VR, AR. That's still very early on. I don't think anyone's really figured out how to crack that. I'd say the short, vague answer, because I'm sure someone from legal would yell at me, is I could expect there will be conversations around that, but I think we all know that things like that are top of mind for the industry, so I would keep an eye out. Everyone feel good? Cool. Thanks all.
All right, thank you.
All right, everybody, we're going to have a little bit of a coffee break to get some caffeine. So if you can step outside, we'll bring you back in a few minutes to continue the rest of the workshop. All right, so is everybody enjoying our workshop today? Yes? Cool, awesome. So we're going to change it up a little bit for the intermission. We're going to play a little game. Let's see how well you guys know Gen Z slang. Are you guys familiar with Gen Z slang? Those are the people you are marketing to, so we hope you do. You can just shout out the answers. Audience participation is great. So our first question is, what does spilling the tea mean? Anybody? Gossip. Are you sure? You're sure? Okay. Final answer. You are right. I always wanted to be Alex Trebek, so this is me living out my dream. So thank you for being here with this. Our next question, what about the term bop? What does bop mean? Okay, we have a dance move or a good song. What are we going with? A good song. It's a good song. So dance move, sorry, you guys are out. You have to leave the workshop because you got it wrong. No, we're okay. All right, next question. When something slaps, what does it mean? You guys sure? You want to phone a friend for that? No, you're good? How good something is. You guys are good at this. You should be. This is your job. And can you decipher what fit means? Outfit. Anyone else? Another answer? Kenny, what do you think? Kenny doesn't know. It is an outfit. Last one. What's a whip? I actually got some of these wrong when I was doing this, so you guys are better than me. It is a car. Guys, you are great. Clap your hands for yourselves. You know this generation very well. Hold on. All right, guys. Now I'm going to turn it over to the moderator for our panel discussion, the Director of Client Development with NetElixir, Anthony Turco. Guys, clap your hands for Anthony.
Thank you very much, Jason. Appreciate it. All right. So before I bring up our panel here in a second, just wanted to kind of kick things off with just a little bit of a story. And I don't know, if you're like me, I mean, raise your hand if you're just kind of sick of the weather lately. I mean, rainy constantly. I feel like every time I go outside, it's raining, right? And then I remembered, as I'm sitting there after getting off the train, frustrated that it's raining again, there is one company that actually likes it when it's raining. Any ideas? Umbrellas, exactly. And that is my little prop right here, where I went and purchased. Anybody shout out how much? Okay, so 15's close. There was a model at 15, and the whole point I'm getting at is that a lot of what our panel is going to be talking about today, growth strategy, how to grow your business, that starts with customers and finding the right customers, your high-value customers who's willing to spend 3 to 5 times more than the average, right? So 15 is about 3 times more. These are retailing on Amazon for $5, so 15 is about more. But they actually had a model that was 15, but I chose this model because I wanted the little loop on the end because I'm a little bit more traditional. So my point being is that what we want to help find you guys do is be at the right time, the right place, the right conditions, with the right product, and that is your high-value customer. And that was me literally getting off the train going, I got to walk 30 blocks. It's raining. It wasn't supposed to rain. I looked at the weather forecast, but nevertheless, right person, right time, right product, and I spent $20 for this. 5 more than 15 because I wanted it to be more traditional, because that's kind of more my style. So that was right time, right place. So what our panel is going to be talking about today is that growth strategy, how to find those high-value customers, and come up with some different ideas on your marketing strategy. And hopefully you guys have some takeaways that you can apply towards your own business. So with that, I'd like to bring up Chaz Fox, Ryan Ricci, Monica Grecki, and Tausif Syed to join our panel. Big round of applause. Do we have 4 microphones? I think one more mic, because there's one mic here. Test 1, yeah. You guys okay to pass? Okay. Oh, here, Ryan, I can give you this. Here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is our panel. So we'll go ahead and start at the far my right, where if each of you could just give a quick introduction, who you are, your background, and we can start off with Chaz.
Sure. My name is Chaz Fox. I'm the CEO of Micromark. I have made a career of coming into e-commerce companies that are financially stressed and helping to turn them around. I've done this about 4 times. A little stressful, but it's kind of fun too. And of course, we're in a really different environment now. But another interesting fact is I played in the NFL years ago. They did have face masks at the time. And I'm an adjunct professor at Seton Hall University.
Nice to meet you. My name is Monica, and I'm a director of digital at Beauty Quest Group. We are a hair care company. We have 6 brands, and I love e-com. I love scaling DTC and Amazon businesses, so I look forward to chatting with all of you today.
Hi, my name is Tausif Syed. I lead the client strategy vertical at NetElixir. And if you're working with NetElixir, you're most likely working with somebody on my team. I've had the good fortune of being a part of the growth journey of multiple e-commerce brands, and we help scale e-commerce brands across the board. So that's my role. The last decade has been phenomenal, but the next 3 years are going to be a lot better. So with that, I'll pass it on to Ryan.
I love that. Hi, Ryan Ricci. So I'm the head of agency here at Google, and I lead a team of about 20 growth consultants focused on not only working with our premier partner agencies like NetElixir, as well as working with high-value growth clients in terms of helping them land their customer business objectives, but also build infrastructure and architecture around how they can actually activate for those right time, right moments across all of Google products. So not just search, but all products within the portfolio, including things like Waze and Lens and all those fun little gadgets. So happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you, panel. So we'll kick things off. This one will be for Chaz and Monica. We talked a lot in the first session today, just all the different things happening with Google, third-party cookies, the iOS update in Facebook, COVID obviously threw everything for a loop for B2B and B2C. So first question for you guys, what is the one thing you think all marketers should adopt now to succeed in the digital future? And we can start, Chaz or Monica, want to take a stab at it?
Well, I think was mentioned before, we have to implement GA4 as quickly as you can and get used to it. And hopefully we are on the verge of doing that. Hopefully there's some cool features in there that will help us glean some more information about our customers and who's coming to our our website. That's number one. And of course, the other theme that we've been talking about that I think is number one is to dig in deeper to your data, your customer file, and really get to know your customers even more. We thought we were doing that, and we have all this disruption made us go back and look, and we found some really cool stuff by just doing some data dives, and that's worth the time to do, and segmenting your customer file.
That's great. Yeah, for us, we're onboarding Northbeam, which is a first-party analytics provider. So we're still in the process of doing that, but we're hoping that'll really give us a lot of insight into what's working, what's not, et cetera. I also think, like we touched on content earlier today, and definitely content is still king. Really having a strong value proposition that you're communicating to your customer at every stage of the funnel to really convert them, and really utilizing everything in your power, like we use a lot of email and SMS, et cetera, just maximizing every customer touch point, every piece of marketing and content you have to drive the conversion.
Thank you. And I think to piggyback on that, with Tausif more on the agency side and Google more the search provider side, do you guys have anything to add to that, more from a long-term perspective? So we hear the things that need to happen now. Where do you guys position your strategies to help business owners and CEOs and executives like Chaz and Monica to realize those immediate visions in terms of establishing GA4, getting to know their customers better?
So I think I'll take one step back here, just to have a look at what is happening in the industry across the board. Why is measurement and data so important today? It is because few years back, like 5 years ago, the power was with the tech giants. Right now, the decision making is slowly moving towards the consumer. Earlier, you could bid on 20,000 keywords and take care of your core search marketing. But today, you need to understand who is the right kind of consumer for you. Your consumer has the right to choose which brands they want to interact with and how. So having a consistent brand tone across the funnel is very important. Number two, understanding who is your best customer is absolutely vital and critical across the funnel. Right? Your best customers will have a purchase behavior and a purchase journey. How do they interact with your brand? Where do they interact with your brand? How do they arrive at a purchase decision? And lastly, using that understanding, how can we find more of the similar consumers who have a similar purchase behavior? And that is why everything boils down to measurement. So measurement is the key. And that is where GA4 comes into the picture, along with GA4 first-party data, enhanced conversions, and more. As Udayan was quoting earlier, based on our Elixir Insights platform, we understand that 13 to 15% of your high-value customers, they contribute about 50%, 40%, if I'm not mistaken, was the revenue contribution. Now, who are those 13 to 15% and what is their purchase behavior? And that is what data helps us understand, and that is where measurement becomes the key.
I mean, I don't know if I could have said it better, but that's well done. I think I was supposed to do that pitch. Look, we gave consumers the opportunity to tell us how comfortable they are with sharing their data, right? COVID changed everything, but we also recognize people don't want their data traded like currency. So how, as marketers, can we have the foundational practices to make sure that, number one, we can capture demand when it starts spiking, because you can't plan for anything to go viral. Number two, how do I remain discoverable, as Tausif said? And number three, how do I figure out what part of my media mix is working, right? There are some walled gardens out there, ourselves certainly, our partners at Meta, Amazon as well. How do I know when I activate across all these channels, which is my most valuable channel? And if we're not set up to even speak to those things, is our business going to last? Are we a business of the future, or are we surviving right now? So these are hard things and hard questions that we pride ourselves on helping brands set up. And we do this mindfully, obviously, through the power of automation, number one, making sure that every customer can actually measure their media, especially with Google, but also try to be value add when it comes to whether they're running mixed media models or less sophisticated, just understanding channel by channel, what's the ROAS. But we also want to make sure that everyone understands the value of their first-party data and knows how to use that as you start activating across these channels. Because we want to move away from volumetrics. We want to move into things like profitability, lifetime value, understanding if I could put you in a room with 100 customers right now that are ready to buy, would you take that room or would you take 1 million people we have no idea about? Most brand managers, most business will take those high-value customers and just the 100 because know they're going to buy. So these are some of the things that we work with partners on. This is one of the things that NetElixir does really well is they understand the levers that you can pull, but more importantly, they understand the infrastructure you have to build, right? So we'll build a foundation on stone instead of sand because again, when we start finding new customers, we start developing them down the funnel into lifetime value customers. We want to make sure that we don't oversaturate them, but we also want to find people that look like them. And I think that is where the future is going in terms of if everybody removes some of the cookies and if we have more constraints, am I set up to bid to profit and value, or am I going to be beholden to just volumetrics where I'm guessing? We want the former, not the latter.
Excellent. Thank you so much for those answers. And just, I think it segues nicely into some of the next question that we have. And I want to get to kind of more realistic here because we've talked a lot theoretical of what you should be doing, what you need to be doing, and it's a lot out there. I mean, we touched on a lot of topics today. YouTube. I mean, just in addition to the Google and the social, and if you're in Amazon, so there's a lot of channels out there, and we understand we have to find those high-value customers. So I wanted to ask, and first open up to our panelists that are representing brands today, Chaz and Monica, is how do you go about prioritizing what you need, right? Because in the perfect world, we'd all have unlimited budgets and we could all experiment with. Oh, I lost my mic. All right,
check.
No worries. I'll just talk a little louder. Back. Check one. We're back. So the question is, how do we prioritize which channel we go in? Because again, unlimited budget would be a perfect world. Experiment and everything, find out what sticks. But we have to make business decisions. So talking to our brand representatives here, how do you guys go about making those business decisions and prioritize what channel's most important, how much to invest, and how to take that kind of leap of faith into maybe something new like a Facebook or a metaverse or a YouTube?
Right. So business is the aligning of resources to a particular strategy that you've set out. So you as a company, you have to pick what are your priorities. So for us, for Micromark, we really focus at the very beginning on product innovation, on providing cool solutions for customers. Every company that I've come into that was in trouble weren't doing that to some degree. Am I back?
We're on the 5th floor, right? So we're good?
On the 5th floor. Cool. So product innovation is key for us. It heals all woes. I mean, customers will seek you out if you have cool product, and if you're a marketing machine, that's great. But if you don't have cool products, it's just tough. And so we really focus on that as a customer base. We are taking the strategy of really getting much more acquainted with our first-party data. And it's not good that we haven't before, but it was so easy before, right? With third-party cookies just allowed us to talk to so many people, and they would sort of come to us. Am I back? Okay. Am I back? Okay, I'm here. Sorry about that. So that's another angle. But continually learning. I mean, we used to be able to sort of set it and forget it. Continuing learning as an organization is key. We don't know what is going to replace third-party cookies or what other version of things can come up. Maybe it's Google Topics. We don't know if that's going to be. But we need to, as a company, get really familiar with what are these other alternative solutions for speaking to customers. There's some stuff within Google. I'm sure Google is going to figure something out. In 2020, from paid search, they had $147 billion in revenue. That went up in 2021 to $209 billion in revenue. And imagine if you compare what happened in the EU, and that's a good data point for us, right? What happened in the EU with the general data protection regulation that went into effect in 2018. Basically, it did away with tracking third-party data. Well, what happened? The Canadian Marketing Association did a study on what the results of that were. It's a good data point for us to look at, but it really affected and impacted small businesses way more than big businesses. Certainly, that makes sense. We saw there certainly was ads, paid ads went down. And the reason is, why would you, is you're not able to track those ads, how they perform. So certainly we'll still be able to put out contextual ads on keywords, but we just won't know how well they do. And that'll be, for us, that'll be a struggle. We're gonna have to figure that out. And finally, the other thing that happened is there was a lot more fraud. So that happened then, it's probably gonna happen in this case. Even though this isn't a government regulation, this is being done by business. I think it's admirable that Google's doing this. I think it's for the good, but we have to figure it out.
Yes, I agree. Definitely, product is where you need to start with a very strong product. So we're lucky that we have that solved at our company. So for us, we're really we work on every marketing lever. So we're running, ads through Meta, TikTok, paid search, email, SMS. We definitely tend to lean into the highest ROAS campaigns, and NetElixir's done an amazing job for us. For example, in one of our brands, they drive 50 to 60% of our revenue through paid search. But we're always testing also new things, what can we do? How can we go up the funnel? How can we, test anything new that's coming out? But you really need to have strong content. Again, on Meta ads, we're always trying to find the best creative. How do we convert? Whether it's adding reviews, UGC, etc. So for us, it's really going after the highest ROAS campaigns and tactics first. And then testing and learning. And for us, Amazon has also been super successful. So we're always running our sponsored product ads there, sponsored brands, but we're gonna keep testing, keep optimizing content, and we're doing that across all our channels, including ads.
Thank you so much, Monica. I think Monica and Chas, both of you touched on two very important points. One is TLG. We call it the TLG framework, test, learn, and grow. Where essentially it is very important to always keep testing for new products, new features. Many clients come and ask me, is Snapchat good for my customer? Is TikTok good? Right? The response and the answer is, are your consumers on that product? Are they using? Are they interacting? If so, do you have a strategy to engage with those consumers, or do you just want to be there for the heck of it? So those are the questions and answers that you have to discuss, and it has been, we have seen the journey for Micromark, for example, from how they have moved from a model train specific focused brand to now a Comic-Con consumer. So as a strategic partner, it is important for us to collaborate and work hand in hand with your core product strategy, with your core promotion strategy, and then recommend the path forward. And when I was talking about measurement earlier, GA4 is absolutely important because it helps us understand the cross-device behavior of users. But at the same point in time, there are many other metrics.
Someone was
Someone wanted to head out a little early. Trying to set up the fire.
So I think back to measurement, I think what is very important is from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel, very important to use all possible tools at your disposal. One of our participants here pointed out about conversion lift study. Very important, not just conversion lift, but based on your budgets, you could also look at search lift, brand lift. And then there are multiple products out there that are coming out in the world that are new to the world. So that TLG framework, test, learn, grow, very important and vital once again. New disruptive technologies are not the norm. You will see something coming from a mile away if you are able to experiment and test it for your consumer segment.
I have just one thing to add. I think when we started thinking about the traditional marketing funnel, it used to be, let me collapse the funnel down. Let me bring as many people to the top of the funnel and let me walk them down. I think today, and I think what you're hearing from the panel, is you want to focus on your most profitable channels first and then slowly start walking back up the funnel. Things like incrementality of measurement is one of the biggest keys that every brand should be thinking about, right? This worked. Why? How much did it bring to the table? Should I continue going forward? Right? Things like brand lift and search lift, understanding what video did to drive organic search lift, these are huge tools, but you've got to be set up to measure it correctly. You've got to understand attribution, and you have to make sure that you're measuring each phase of the funnel. And those are the things that I think marketers of the future have been ruthlessly focused on, because as we move towards more privacy-centric measurement, the keys to the castle are going to sit with those that actually understand what the consumers are doing in each channel, how long they're spending, and how I can find people that look like them that previously didn't know my product.
Yeah, and I think what we're hearing, just as a summary for, and all those were excellent answers, is to prepare, is to really study your own company, study your own data. I mean, it takes us back to high school, college. And nobody liked to study, but that was the best way to get you prepared for the test, best way to get to the next level, to succeed, to get a high score. And yeah, it's hard to comb through that data. But we see when there's disruptions that happen in the e-commerce world, there's a COVID, there's an iOS update, third-party cookies, those that are most prepared are the ones that know their business and company the best from their analytic data and their customer data. So understanding those high-value customers and knowing how your brand responds to those customers and better connecting with them is definitely what we're seeing. Moving on to just innovation and differentiation. So assuming that every company out there knows that that's what they have to do and everybody's doing it, we know that that's not the case, but we want to over-prepare. What is the best way to differentiate your business? And Chaz and Monica, you can speak from your business perspective, and Tausif and Ryan can talk from what they would recommend to their clients from a differentiation standpoint. I know, Chaz, you bringing 3,000 new products to market. I mean, that's a huge feat. So if you guys could share a little bit about how you go ahead and differentiate, I think a lot of business owners would like to hear that.
Sure thing. And again, I go back to product development, and the company that I took over, Micromark, I guess 6 years ago, hadn't introduced stuff in a long time, and we put together a very robust team of product development from the internal staff. And over the course of the last 5 years, we introduced 4,600 new products, which is an insane number. Half of those didn't do that great, right? Some of them did amazing, and some of them did okay. And in all, it was worth the effort, because not only did we get new customers from the new stuff, but we also sold a lot more of the stuff of our core business stuff, and that energy drove customers to want to come. So you can discount, you can reach people different ways to get through the noise of digital marketing, but new always does an amazing new thing, gets people to show up more and for less cost. So that's certainly one area. Digging into our customer file, Tausif was talking about, we were selling stuff to train modelers and plastic modelers and woodworkers, stodgy stuff, right? And then we find out that, hey, people are using these tools to make props for cosplay, for movie sets, and we didn't even know that was going on until we really did a bigger, deeper customer dive. So all that stuff is there, and we should have known it beforehand. We just didn't get to it. So you probably have some treasure troves in your data that could really be meaningful to your company if you would dig in.
So, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Differentiators within your business that help
it.
set you apart.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. So, I mean, I think for us, it's really communicating the brand story and what, you know, Ali and I are in the process of, you know, scaling 3 e-commerce brands. So they each have their own identity. They each have a different core customer. So really we are trying to, and of course there's competitors, so we're trying to differentiate ourselves through content, through really getting the messaging right. Yeah, I would say it still comes back to content, I mean, and to kind of also having a strong content promotional strategy so that you're kind of, it's not just like Memorial Day sale or whatever it is, it's like, wrapping everything you do into the brand story and understanding your customer, understanding how to reach them through interesting promotions, themes. Like, for example, now we're doing something related to travel sizes. So because we know our customer, we know what she likes. Like one brand has a social cause associated with it, which is being plastic neutral. So we're always talking to that. Earth Day is like a huge event for us. So it's just really getting into the mindset of the customer, understanding who she is, what she wants, and then just everything you do, the marketing, the promotions, is always speaking to that and to bring her deeper and deeper into the brand story and into that affinity and connection she has with the brand. So that's what we're trying to do across touch points. It's a work in progress. We have so much work to do across everything to optimize, but we're tackling it.
Wonderful. And I think just to piggyback on that answer is what Chaz was saying, and understanding that customer. And you had mentioned, I mean, 3 brands where, I mean, there might be some inner competition. Plus, if you're on Amazon, I mean, that's always going to be there. So that really understanding that brand story. And you mentioned about, you know, being green, Monica, and that, you know, speaks well to that Gen Z market, right? And then your baby boomers might want more trustworthiness. Your millennials might respect influencers more, and really understanding and knowing that data. From a differentiation standpoint on more the agency side and Google side, what, I guess, you work with a lot of clients. What is your, I know a little early for Christmas, but what is your Christmas wish for your clients of what you would like to see that, hey, you know what, a lot of my clients maybe don't have this or they're not embracing this. What would you kind of like to see them adopt that you believe will help set them apart? And, you know, maybe some of those business owners out there that aren't doing that could hear your answer and might, you know, give them the benefit to actually go and try that.
Well, I was also thinking about what differentiates NetElixir, but I'll hold on to that. Now, I think leaning into AI, very important. Knowing what to use where is critical. I think many products, whether it is GA4, Universal Analytics has been sunset. GA4 next year is mandatory. Performance Max campaigns, Smart Shopping has been sunset. It is pivoting towards PMax. So point is, do not wait for that sunset time to arrive. The Universal Analytics, for example, that is for 100% of the websites out there. But e-commerce retailers are about 1% of the websites across the globe. So for those 1%, it is very important to make that move happen by the end of June this year, if possible, and for the 360 customers by the start of October this year. Otherwise, next year you will run into YOY issues. Year-on-year analysis. I'm sure all the people in the retail world can raise their hand up if you can live without year-on-year analysis. So PMax again, fantastic product, but don't wait for the timelines to arrive. Lean into AI. When to use TROS, when to use target CPA. Those are basic decisions, but knowing how to use AI is critical. At the top of the funnel, what are the Google has given us an example of multiple products, right? There are tons out there, but knowing what to use where that resonates best with your brand, that is where your strategic decision making comes into the picture, right? For example, if you talk about products, we were talking about high value customers and how valuable they are. But what do you look for when you look at their purchase behavior? Look for what is the entry level product that is leading to the maximum high value customers. Right? Look and then max out on those product categories. Look for, who are those consumer segments who have purchased with you once and have a higher likelihood of repeat purchases. Look for customers who are your repeat purchases but are, have not engaged with your brand for a while. So those are the data points that you should look for, and lean into AI to do the heavy lifting. You don't have to do 50,000 bid changes per day. But knowing which bid strategy to leverage where, that is important.
Very well said. Don't give consumers homework. Tell them exactly what you want them to do. Stop trying to get interesting and go viral with your creative. Number one, create content native to the platform. YouTube for YouTube, Meta for Meta, TikTok for TikTok, Snapchat for Snapchat. Number two, tell them exactly what you want them to do, right? Keep it as short as possible. The average human attention span, anybody know how long it is? So I'll give you a hint. Goldfish is 1 second. Humans are 2. All right? That's why there's a skip button after 5 seconds, right? The other thing is stop trying to put the genie back in the bottle, right? If you are not creating for the supercomputer sitting in your pocket, you are completely missing the mark. I don't care who your core consumer is. Anybody ride the subway today? How many people are standing there smiling at you, right? Right? We have chiropractic problems because of what's going on here. So make sure you're making native content to the channel you're activating against. Be clear which channels you should be activating against. There is no shame in saying Snapchat doesn't work for us. YouTube doesn't work for us. Search is our bread and butter. Search grows incrementality. I can do tests to see where else I can grow, but make sure you are nailing your core competency. And just some advice to a lot of the small businesses out there. What's your senior purpose? Why do you exist? If you start there and make sure you never stray away from that path, you can connect yourself to the consumer, to the utility, and how you can speak to them. Too many people get too cute with their creative, go too many different directions. You don't tell consumers where to find you, you don't tell them how to buy you, and you don't tell them what to do right now. So do that and make sure it's mobile focused. And if you have measurement plans in place, you may be surprised at some of the changes in the data. It may give you a new North Star, even if you thought that was wrong.
So to summarize there, I mean, just understand your customer identity, track them, and just keep the pedal to the metal. I think, we're clients that I speak with just on, day in and day out, especially after they got their, boom from COVID, expected that just to stay. And I think when you see like a 3x gain like that or a 4x gain, you need to respond with a 3x effort, right? Think in terms of effort, not necessarily investment, of just, I need this much more effort to stay on top of that, because like the stock market, like we're saying, gains don't always last forever, right? Nothing gold can stay. And you need to be aggressive both in good times and bad times, because when things start to go bad, that's when other competitors enter the market, right? You're getting, it just opens the door, and we're seeing a lot of competition in paid. And I like what Ryan said just about staying on message and staying on brand, because I know we didn't talk a whole lot about SEO, but that's right up there with your SEO strategy, right? This is a cross-channel, channel-agnostic digital strategy. Understand your brand, understand your customer, and stay on message. Don't try and deviate. Don't try and go viral with something, because that's how you alienate, especially with a lot of these younger generations that want brands to be authentic. So great answer to that. And last question before we wrap up here, guys, is just, talking about the future. We have, I heard a little bit about the metaverse, and I know YouTube, we're pushing YouTube, for rightly so. We saw the statistics. But we see virtual reality on the horizon, and I'm just curious that, in addition to anything else you guys think is coming down the pike, that us as business owners need to be prepared for in digital. Open to anybody can start, but just, curious your thoughts.
I'll start, if that's okay. So I mean, AI is exciting, and for small businesses to be able to tap in that seems like something that will happen maybe closer to now than in later. I also don't, and I know this is a digital marketing discussion, but there are other forms of marketing. I sit on I'm an advisor for a company called The Sill. They sell common plants in very fashionable containers to millennials in metropolitan areas, and they're growing like crazy. And they're doing it mostly on the internet, mostly digitally, and doing it all very, very well. But they're also opening the traditional brick and mortar small store to create that kind of engagement. We do the old-fashioned catalog, and we still do it, believe it or not. And you know, the cloudiness of digital marketing, everything coming at you, and you got 2 seconds of attention. You sit down with a cup of coffee and a catalog, that's an experience with a brand. And that still is something that maybe some of you would never even think to do that. But Wayfair did it a few years ago, and they're still doing it. And the reason I think it's working for them is that their sister company, I keep forgetting the name, Josh and Main, just came out with their own catalog for this. So I believe that there's a place for that somewhere. So traditional marketing still has a way of working with digital marketing.
Great. So, I mean, I'm very excited to see all the changes happening at Google, like Performance Max, et cetera. So I'm really excited to see how this may potentially replace what we do on Meta, or how the two channels will end up working together. So I think that's a little bit TBD, because like for us, like we do know if we lower our spend on social, it definitely has implications on the success of our paid search or on our organic search. So how are these channels working together, and what is the future of Google? You know, what are they bringing us? I think it's super exciting. And I would also say, for me, I think, you know, the ability to create content fast, like all these platforms, like Canva's amazing, and you know, there's new software out there that helps you to create ad creatives, new banners, etc. So you know, how do we get faster and more nimble and test? So I think that's what I'd love to see, like, because for every team we have to rely very heavily on our creative team, strapped for time. So that's like something exciting that we would like to lean into once the technology is available.
Thank you, Ryan. I think first and foremost, kudos to Ryan for being the first one to call out Meta and even Amazon coming in from the Google team. Massive respect, Ryan. I think, again, there's a lot of talk about the virtual world, about Meta, but the first step is the meeting of the real world and the virtual, and that is where I think AR and augmented reality is going to play a big role. And what I like about Google's approach specifically is all their products are measured, they are open for the public to test, and Google is also open to feedback. For example, a lot of you last year may have heard about Flock and other approaches which were based on the feedback, you know, pushed down, and new features are being tested. So I think in the next 3 years, cross-channel efficiencies are going to be a lot more higher. You will be able to measure a lot more carefully what is happening at the upper funnel and the impact that is happening at the bottom of the funnel. It will be available across the board. AI will be a tool which all of us start using a lot more seamlessly, and you know, will start trusting. Today, that trust factor is still a lot more lower. People are hesitant. Big brands are hesitant. So I think those are the two immediate features that I foresee.
Yeah, just as a consumer, I, for one, think it's interesting. At the same time, I'm not sure which way to go with it in terms of thinking of the metaverse. I am a firm believer in automation. I think what machine learning is capable of can be even scary at times. And I've seen the benefits it's done to our partners, but at the same time, trying to put my head in a consumer lens and someone who's enjoying things like the metaverse, what are we going to learn from that, right? Are people going to be buying soft drinks and drinking them in the metaverse? No, but will people tell brands what the brand is to them in the metaverse? That might be interesting. Will it change creative approaches based on how consumers are choosing to hide what they spend Bitcoin on in the metaverse, or what they choose to engage with, or what they completely ignore even though it's something they buy in the real world? So I don't know, and if I could look around corners, I would have started that company and I would have tried to make a run at it myself. But I think everyone in this room should be open to testing, should be open to understanding this is going to be an interesting learning experiment, and I just want to watch and be ready to activate if I can, because I know machine learning is going to get me there super quick. I think AI will help everybody figure out certain ways they can have a different life sitting in that universe, but it doesn't mean everybody should go all into this because we just don't know yet. So let's allow the consumers to start to tell brands what they actually think and what their real brand may be. There's a lot of success stories out there where brands thought they were for one customer segment and they ended up killing it in the other, and they just couldn't understand because they never asked the consumers, why are you buying this? And when they started to pipe into that, all of a sudden it changed their business. So that's the way I'm looking at the metaverse until I personally know more, because I just don't, and that's kind of exciting as well.
Thank you very much, guys. And I think, Tassif and Ryan bring up a good point with just artificial intelligence, AI, machine learning, and, to, those old souls out there like me that, we're not quite in the matrix yet. We're not there on virtual. I think there's still going to be that human being element there, but we have to work with the machines, right? I mean, and was the whole issue with the Matrix movies, right? You have to work with them, not against them, use them to your benefit. And I think Ryan brings up a good point. Make sure you're there to test, right? Have a test budget ready to go. Don't be caught by surprise when something new comes down the pike, whether it's a new Google beta, a new advertising feature in the metaverse, right? You want to make sure you have that in your budgeting and be ready for that level of investment. And I love to just wrap up with what Chaz said about the old traditional advertising too, right? And that is nice to hear because you want to get your marketing out there in every traditional. It sounds like that's not going away, at least from what our panel's thinking. And even the Gen Zers and the millennials, very nostalgic focused. That nostalgia has gotten a revamp. So I think understanding that traditional advertising is going to be increasingly important as we go into this meta world. So that's going to do it for our panel. I really appreciate you guys staying with us, and I know through some of the emergency things, but we just want you to go out, find your product umbrella, right, and let some of our experts here and find those experts that's going to show you how to make every day a rainy day, just to kind of put a positive spin on some of the weather that we're getting, right? But it's out there, it's through the data, and that's how you go out and get those high-value customers like people like me spending $20 on an umbrella. So thank you guys so much. Big round of applause for our panel.
Thank you.
Ryan, Tassif, Monica, and Chaz.
Let's also give a nice round of applause for Anthony moderating our panel. You guys were awesome. You were great. Next up, we're going to have Margaret Dunlap, the Director of Marketing for UPS, come up and talk about the future of logistics. So let's give her a round of applause, everybody. Come on.
Top button? Yep. Got it. Testing, okay. Good morning. I think maybe it's good afternoon by now. Good afternoon, everyone. I know I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch, and you all look very hungry. And you've been talking a lot about cookies, so I know that makes it even worse. So I'm gonna change the conversation just a little bit and go from cookies to carbon, which is something a little less appetizing, and maybe it'll take your mind off of lunch just for a few minutes. So without further ado, I'll get right into it. So I was asked to talk about the future of logistics, and I could have talked about so many different topics because there's a lot going on in our industry right now. I could have talked about omni-channel, nearshoring, all the different challenges with technology associated with not enough labor, supply chain issues, and all of that. But I chose to talk about sustainability. Because I feel like sustainability is something that is really the future of logistics, and it's an imperative that we all share. It's important to our communities, it's important to our customers, and it's important to our employees as well at UPS. So the future of logistics is definitely greener. Not green, but greener, right? It's going to take a while. So at UPS, sustainability has been important to us for a long, long time. And since 1982, when we first got propane vehicles, we've been experimenting with different types of fuel for a number of years. But right now, we've recently, in the past couple of years, have established a goal of being carbon neutral by 2050. And that's a huge undertaking for a global company with that we're in 220 countries, over 120,000 vehicles in our fleet, and hundreds, if not thousands, of locations around the world. But we are going to get there, and along the way, there's milestones, right, that we want to hit before we get to that. by 2025, which is only 3 years from now, we plan to have 25% of all of our facilities using renewable electricity. And by 2035, 100% of those facilities will be renewable, as well as 50% of our per package CO2 emissions will be offset and will be reduced. And of course, 30% of our jet fuel will be renewable as well by 2035. Lots to take place between now and then, but we're well on the way. What have we accomplished so far? We've already reduced our CO2 emissions per package since 2010 by over 15%. So we're on the way to go from there. But that goal of reducing at 50% is from 2020 levels. So that's a significant undertaking that we'll be doing. We had a goal of planting over 15 million trees, and we exceeded that by 2020. And now we've upped that goal to planting 50 million trees by 2030, which we think we're going to be well on the way to accomplishing that as well. So a lot going on there, and a lot more work to do, certainly just getting started. So the approach that UPS has taken when it comes to sustainability is a rolling laboratory approach. Because of all the different use cases for fuels and energy and electricity and all the things that it takes to run a global network like we have, one size definitely does not fit all. So over the course of the past many years, we've engaged in many projects. We've spent over $1 billion in all kinds of different technologies, including new renewable fuels, different types of vehicles that we've been experimenting with, also technology associated with electric grids production and things of that nature. Just since 2008, we have purchased over 10,000 all-electric vehicles that we are using in our fleet right now, and they're driving over 1 million miles a day, and cumulatively since 2008, they've driven over 3 billion miles just on alternative fuel vehicles. So a lot is being done so far, but certainly a lot more work to do as well. We've contracted with Tesla to purchase 125 all-electric feeders, trucks, big rigs, as well as with a company called Arrival, which is a very innovative company that works to customize delivery van technology. We're purchasing over 10,000 all-electric delivery vans from them as well. So a lot going on, and I'm very excited to see what the future brings for our company. And we're not alone in this. We're working very collaboratively with a lot of different companies out there that are hyper-focused on greening the supply chain. Everything from, we're working on technology associated with, in certain cities where the biggest problem we have right now, to be honest, is that the technology, the electric grids that we need to power our fleets are not in place yet. So we're not waiting for governments to get that done. We're working with private companies to create that technology and be able to put that infrastructure in our facilities so that we can go ahead and get started using electric vehicles. And we've spent lots of money putting that in place and collaborating with other companies that are doing that. We're using everything from renewable natural gas, converting methane into renewable natural gas. In fact, we're going to be the largest consumer of renewable natural gas in the world, because we've got a commitment of purchasing over 250 million gallon equivalents of that product. So we've got hydrogen in our fleet, we've got electric, we've got compressed natural gas. We're experimenting with all types of different fuels in that rolling laboratory, because we know that not one solution is going to work for us. It's going to be a combination of solutions, and that's the approach we're taking. Another technology that UPS is using involves AI and machine learning. I know you've been talking a lot about that today. You might have heard of our technology called Orion, which stands for On-Road Integrated Optimization and Navigation. And what that program does, it's been around for a number of years now, but it allows us to optimize our routing. Picture a delivery vehicle in the city. We try to minimize, for example, left turns. We don't like left turns. We like right turns. Why? Because when you're sitting at a traffic light and waiting to make a left-hand turn, you're idling. And when you're idling, you're burning fuel, you're emitting carbon into the atmosphere, and you're not moving. So it's a waste, right? So what Orion allows us to do is optimize our routes, eliminate as many left turns as possible, look at traffic patterns so that our drivers can have the most efficient routes as possible to avoid those heavy traffic areas at certain times of the day so that they can keep moving, so that they don't have to burn as much fuel and idle as much time, and we can use less fuel and emit less. So it's really a wonderful technology, and it also allows us to plan what type of vehicles we need to use to get the packages delivered. So for example, what size vehicle, what type of vehicle will work in what particular scenario. And you can see some examples here of just different vehicles that we're using. I'm super proud of our e-bikes, hybrid electric vehicles. In certain cities in those congested areas like New York City and some of the cities over in Europe, we've been testing a lot of different e-bike and electric technologies that take the smog out, eliminate the congestion, the noise, and allow us to still get packages delivered, but using a much smaller carbon footprint. That's another example of a vehicle there that was showcased at the Dubai Expo. Really cool vehicle that gives you that cargo space, but also it's an electric vehicle. So let's talk a little bit about consumers, right? So is sustainability important to your buyers, to your consumers? And the answer is yes. Where to Go and just did a survey earlier this year, and Where to Go, by the way, is one of our UPS fully owned subsidiaries, and I'll talk a little bit more about what they do here in a minute, but they recently did a survey and they found that 88% of consumers across all the generations make purchasing decisions around sustainability. It's important to them. And 66% say that it's become more important as a result of the pandemic. Just to give you some facts around the pandemic and what that's really done to our industry. In 2020, we saw 10 years worth of e-commerce growth in 1 year. 10 years, if you can think about that. And I'm not going to lay a guilt trip on you, but we're all part of the problem. But think about it, all of the online ordering that's happening and the consumer spending that's happening, all of that is driving the use of fossil fuels. And so much so that the transport sector is the single largest carbon emitter of any industry in the world. Depending on which report you look at, we represent at least a quarter of all of the greenhouse gas emissions that get emitted in this industry. So it's significant, right? So we know that it's something we've got to do something about. Not only that, because of the pandemic and because of the change in buyers and the consumer spending habits and the way they shop, which has changed the way we ship. We no longer do as much wholesale going to brick and mortar, which is more of a consolidated method, which uses less carbon, right? Now it's more distributed, which means we're doing more one-to-one, one package to one house, which uses a lot more fuel to make that happen. And what they're saying, FreightWaves recently came out with an article, and they predicted that by 2030, there's going to be 36% more delivery vehicles on the road than there is today, because of the changes in buying habits and the fact of the e-commerce boom. And with that 36% more delivery vehicles, that's going to equate to 30% more fossil fuel usage in the industry, in an industry that's already the single largest emitter, okay? So that's why I talked about this today, because it is an imperative. It's something that UPS is hyper-focused on, and we know that our customers and our consumers, our customer's customer, that it's very important to them as well. Uh-oh, what happened? Did I lose it? Oh, okay, it's back. Can I go backwards? Uh-oh, let's see. I think I skipped a slide. Well, that's okay. So the slide before this was actually a graph that showed that all of our generations, but particularly Gen Z and millennials, are telling us that sustainability is something that they are making purchases, it's a consideration for them with making purchases. On the other slide that I don't have up there, I'm sorry, I don't know if I can go back, but 70% of millennials and 72% of Gen Zers say that they do make purchasing decisions based on sustainability and their personal values. The younger generations, particularly Gen Z, which I know you guys have been talking a lot about today, they're very focused on purchasing from businesses that align with their values, that are authentic around aligning with their values. They're actually doing something about the problems that they see in the world. And sustainability and climate change is one of those topics that are top of mind for the younger generations. And why is that? Because they're the ones that are going to be around to see what the world is going to be like in years to come, right? So it's more important to them than it is to the older generations for that reason alone. But more importantly for all of us, they're willing to put their money where their mouth is, right? They're willing to put their money where their values are. And what we found from the study that came out in 2020 is that depending on the generation, and certainly the younger generations, they're willing to spend more for products that are sustainably sourced and ethically sourced as well. And really, when it comes to over half of Gen Zers and millennials would spend more than 10% more for a product that was sustainably sourced. So that's an important trend that we all need to recognize as we're marketing to our customers and we're developing our brand and we're connecting with our consumers. So what are they looking for? When we talk to customers and consumers and find out what do you mean when you want sustainably sourced products? Well, the most important practices that they're looking for are 64% of them said they want recycled packaging, they want eco-friendly shipping, and they want to do business with companies that carry green brands, right? Those are the top three things that they're looking for right now. And UPS can help with at least two of those. So what is sustainable shipping? How do you do anything about your shipping, and how do you make it more sustainable? It's really broken down into two different buckets. One is packaging and the other is carbon footprint. Packaging is really all about reducing what you're using, the carton size, making that more aligned to the product that you're actually shipping. Do you have extra space in the box? Are you using more packaging materials than you need to? Because if you are, then of course you're killing more trees, right? And you're also, it's something a little known, is that the bigger the packaging, the more room it takes up in delivery vehicles, which means the more delivery vehicles that we need to put on the roads to deliver your products. So optimizing the size of your packaging and for your product to make sure that it doesn't get damaged, that's number one, right? To make sure that it doesn't have excess space in there that contributes to size and excess packaging is a big deal. And then using recycled and compostable packaging products. And UPS, we work with companies that offer that as a solution that can help our customers find that type of packaging and be able to use it. We also have solutions that enable you to reuse your packaging more than one time, get it back from your consumers. And then aggregating shipments to customers so that they don't get as many many times, not as many deliveries. There's a couple of different ways that the industry is moving in that direction. I'm going to talk about a solution that does that here in just a moment. But one is, as I mentioned earlier, the wholesale approach where we deliver more to brick and mortar was a consolidated model. Now that we've gone to more of a distributed model, direct to consumer, there are ways to still get a hybrid consolidated approach with a direct to consumer model, and that's allowing your customers, for example, to choose an alternate delivery location other than their home in the checkout process. You can put in your shopping cart the availability for a customer to choose from 40,000 different access points that we have just alone at UPS. They can pick where they want it to go. It's safer. It's not going to be left on their front porch for porch pirates and ants and whatever else and elements to get to it, as well as it can be put to a commercial delivery stop, which reduces your cost because you don't pay for the residential surcharge. And it's one stop where customers come and pick up when they're shopping, maybe at Michael's, or picking up an auto part at Advanced Auto Parts, or a pharmacy item at CVS or something like that. Those are all access point opportunities. Mom and pop locations as well, where they're going to be there anyway. They can pick up their package, and we're not having to deliver it to every single house or every single apartment building along the way. That's very useful, particularly in those heavy, more condensed city type environments. Carbon footprint is the other one. Decreasing time in transit to lower carbon emissions. People sometimes think that, we all know that our customers want their products in 1 to 2 days, right? That's where the market is going. It's probably where it is. They want it faster. And sometimes people think that, being faster means you're going to probably sacrifice sustainability. You're going to use more fuel. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can actually have both. And UPS offers solutions that can make that happen. For example, we have the company I mentioned earlier, Where2Go. It's a distributed warehouse model where you pick and choose, and they'll actually help you select the optimal number of warehouses that you need to distribute your products. Maybe it's 3 in different places around the country. It could be more or less. And what you're doing is they'll optimize the amount of inventory, the type of inventory that is placed in those locations, and they will offer you a 1 to 2 day time in transit from all of those locations to allow you to meet the customer's expectations of fast delivery. But guess what? Because it's a distributed model, but it's consolidated in those warehouses, then we're not driving as many miles and using as much fuel to deliver your customers' packages. So it's a green solution. So you can have your cake and eat it too. And then, of course, electric final mile delivery vehicles. We're hyper-focused on buying as many of those as we can possibly get into our fleet and be able to electrify. But, the good news about that for our industry as well is that most last mile delivery vehicles only drive 200 or less miles a day anyway, right? The over-the-road trucks, that's still a hurdle. But those local delivery vehicles, they're driving 200 miles or less. So right now we have technology that allows us to charge a delivery van, and it can be all out all day long, delivering, and still be within that window of being charged. So that's already with us. We can already do that. So that's exciting, and allows us to. It's allowing us to be able to get more and more of those into our fleet. And then, of course, offsetting your carbon emissions, which UPS offers a carbon neutral program, which allows you to choose what carbon offset projects you want to invest your money in, and just you pay a fee per package, which goes to those projects to offset your carbon footprint. And then supply chain optimization. So just to talk a little bit about that, we offer solutions that really help you in 4 different approaches. Is how many facilities do you need? Where should they be optimally placed to get close to your consumers, as close as possible to your consumers? How much inventory do you need to have on hand, and where should that inventory be placed? Highest moving SKUs, and as close to your consumers as possible. That can be very dynamic and be moved around as needed, and as things change. And then what modes and routes are necessary for you to get your product to your consumers in the time frame that they're expecting it to be, but managing your cost as well as controlling your carbon footprint as well. So all of those different things, we offer an inventory and warehouse analysis program that helps our customers really optimize their supply chain. And then we talked about sustainable packaging. So we have an eco-responsible packaging certification program where we look at several things. We look at the size of your packaging relative to your product, the type of materials that you're using in your packaging, and we offer solutions to get you those types of compostable and recyclable type packaging that you can have, as well as making sure that it's covering you for damages so that you have the optimal packaging for the products that you're shipping. And then you can get certified, and you can market that to your customers. You can say that you have certified packaging, and we'll help you with that as well. And then, of course, UPS, the type of packaging we use in our express envelopes is 100% recyclable. We have reusable envelopes that you can use twice so that you don't have to use a new envelope every time you ship, as well as all of our packaging products are at least 90% post-consumer and recyclable products. And then this solution, I wanted to tell you a little bit about. It's lesser known, but I think it's really going to be the future in the industry. And it's a solution that UPS came up with not terribly long ago called UPS Synchronized Delivery. And really what it allows you to do is drive, it allows us to drive fewer miles to deliver your packages. And in some cases this works because we've done research that tells us that especially the Gen Zers and the younger consumers are willing to wait for their packages if it means it can be delivered more sustainably, okay? Because that's important to them. So we've offered a new solution called UPS Synchronized Delivery, and really what it allows you to do is you can get a credit to your bill and actually get an incentive for allowing us to hold your packages in our facilities and consolidate them with other shippers' packages. And instead of going out to someone's house every day of the week to deliver a package, one package, we consolidate them and go there only maybe one time, right? Which means we're driving less miles and we're using less fuel and we're emitting less carbon. So let me show you how that works. So this is kind of an example. So Mary goes online and she orders from two different companies, right, a package. So company A, maybe it's you, okay? Company B is another company. And what happens if you're company A, your package is scheduled to deliver on Tuesday, but you allow UPS to hold it for a day, right? And we will credit you with an incentive for that because you're allowing us to do that. And so company B she ordered from wasn't scheduled to be delivered till Wednesday. Well, instead of going out Tuesday and Wednesday to Mary, we're going to hold your package one day, consolidate it with the other company's package, and then we'll go out on Wednesday with both packages. So we're only going to Mary's house one time. You get a discount for allowing us to do that. We update all the tracking systems so that Mary knows when she's going to get her package and can make decisions on where and when she wants them delivered. And she's happy, and we're all happy, and it's a win-win. So that's just an example of a very green, sustainable solution that UPS has come out with to enable our customers to offset some of their carbon and reduce their footprint. Some other ways that you can reduce emissions is the access points that I talked about earlier. Smart pickup. And smart pickup is if you have a daily pickup where we're coming out every single day, whether you have anything to pick up or not. Maybe we're just showing up and saying, hey, do you have anything today? And you're like, no, not today. Well, the way smart pickup works is you spend less on your pickup charge because we're not coming out every day. And we'll only come out when you manifest packages and tell us that you have something. So your computer system will submit when you submit in today. We know that you've got something that you've logged into the system, then we know to come out that day to pick it up. And if we don't see anything in the system, then we know not to come out. So we just won't come by and for no reason, and we're saving miles and saving emissions that way as well. And we touched on the carbon neutral program, which is the offset program as well. Just some other ways that you can reduce emissions. And then finally, the circular economy. So what is a circular economy? UPS is enabling that because we talked about Gen Zers. That you probably are aware that that's one group of customers who are heavily into recycling. Recycling is a big priority. And you probably know of some companies out there that are, I'll give you one prime example. The Gen Z generation is sharing clothing, right? You can order clothes and have it delivered to you, wear it for a while. Maybe you get tired of it. And then it goes on to the next person and they order it and they want to wear it. So it's like we're recycling clothing. That's something that probably us older generations probably would never have considered doing, right? But the younger generations are doing that. And so what this is, the circular economy is really enabling products to go out and come back in a very efficient way to be reused, right? So it could be a computer, laptop, or a phone or something like that, it goes out to the consumer, they use it, they don't want it anymore, and so instead of it going in a landfill, it comes back to you as a shipper. You can scrap it for parts. You can get the value out of it. You can fix it and send it to somebody else. You can do whatever you want to with it, but it enables you to reuse that product over and over again. And because of our portfolio of solutions that we offer that make it easy for you to return things to you and send out again with labels and access points and all the different ways of technology of being able to get that done, that is also helping as a green solution because it's helping us use less product, order less things that require it to end up in the landfill and waste. So I guess I'll conclude with, I think that sustainability is something that is very marketable. It's something that we need to be talking to our customers about. We need to be doing something about it, and we are. It's going to be a long road ahead still for our industry, we know, but UPS is committed to taking a lead in that, and we want to help our customers be able to do that as well, because we know it's going to be important and is already important to your consumers, and we want to do everything we can to help you be able to tell your customers what you're doing to become, and your brand, to become a more sustainable company for the future. So thank you very much.